southerly wind direction, so by 7 a.m. 14 or 15 Celsius. However, for southwest England, for parts of Wales and Northern Ireland, we've got those outbreaks of heavier rain. Some showers pushing into the northwest of England and western Scotland. Drier to the east, but a lot of cloud. Just a few breaks possible there for the northeast of Scotland. Otherwise, for many, well, it is a overcast start to Friday morning and doesn't brighten up much through the morning either, except for the southwest, where we do get some breaks in the cloud returning by the afternoon, albeit with an increasing breeze and some showers. Meanwhile, cloud and rain slowly moves into the Midlands and the southeast. Some heavy bursts, but generally it fizzles out. It's another mild day, but it's not quite as mild as Thursday. By the start of Saturday, the cloudier and wetter weather is confined to the northwest of Scotland. Still some showery rain in the southeast, but otherwise it's a clear start to the day. A few fog patches, they lift into sunny spells. Sunday's also mostly fine for much of the country, with some decent spells of sunshine, but for northwestern Scotland there'll be some heavy rain.
We can expect clear skies, leading to a light and warm day ahead. Lovely. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel, and as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good Afternoon Britain isn't just about us. The wonderful thing about this programme is it's about everyone watching. It's an interactive programme.
Well, there absolutely is something to see here, and we're going to be talking about it more. Whether it's breaking royal news, Will, please bring us up to date, or indeed a particularly punchy speech in the House of Commons.
Very, very curious.
We bring it to you live, and then we bring you live reaction as well.
That's Good Afternoon Britain, weekdays from midday.
Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Good morning. The Prime Minister paves the way for tax rises.
Starmer declares people with assets do not fit into his definition of working people, paving the way for possible tax hikes.
Well, that's as the Chancellor has warned a £50 billion borrowing spree risks raising interest rates.
Up in smoke, the government U-turn on their decision to ban smoking from pub gardens following heavy backlash.
The King delivers a landmark speech in Samoa as he urges world leaders to right inequalities that endure.
It seems to me that these connections between us are more precious than ever. Together we are wiser, stronger, and more able to respond to the demands of our time.
I'm live from a Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, bringing you the latest analysis from His Majesty's speech, and while he is looking forward, not backwards.
Inheritance tax warning. As the government looks to increase the amount of money it raises from the tax, we'll be debating whether it's time to get rid of it completely.
And could the next royal wedding be yours?
I hope so.
Plans have floated to possibly allow weddings on the Balmoral estate, but do you think it's a good idea?
And in sport this morning, Jose Mourinho gets himself sent off. This is Fenerbahce team draw with Manchester United in Istanbul. Also in Europe, Spurs, Rangers, Chelsea and Hearts all win. And in cricket, England could use some early wickets in the third test against Pakistan.
A real mishmash of weather today. Pretty dull for some, bright for others. Bit of heavy rain and some gusty winds. Find out who gets what. Join me later for the weather.
It's just gone 6 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
Just got to kick off with a great story on the front of the Star this morning.
Oh, yeah.
It's an absolute cracker. This fella turned up for a curry.
Yeah.
A nice curry house.
Yeah.
And got all over the internet because everyone thought he was Paul Weller.
Amazing.
And he just sucked it up. He took it. He took it. He didn't get a
Did
free
he get a free
curry.
curry?
No,
That's
he paid
my
for his
first
curry.
question.
But Khan's restaurant says the legend Paul Weller dining here tonight. What an amazing gentleman. Well, he was an amazing gentleman, but unfortunately he's not, Paul Weller.
You know what?
He
doesn't look anything like Paul Weller.
Is he a doppelganger?
He looks like the lead singer of Sweet.
No, sorry.
Oh, no, I think he looks
They're
like him.
identical.
You think so?
I
Yes.
think so, yeah.
I understand completely
Well, funny
what
enough,
happened there.
I've got a friend that was actually at the gig at Wolverhampton.
Yeah.
And met Paul Weller that night, and they were
Did
all...
he smell a curry?
You know what? He was thinking, I think he met Paul Weller.
Oh,
It was in a restaurant, but they were talking about this. They were talking about this and heard about this guy. So he just goes in there and expects... Oh, do you really think he looks like...
I do.
He's a doppelganger,
yeah.
Yes.
I do.
They look exactly the same.
I do think.
I would have mistaken them as well.
The hair's a bit different. He's clearly a Paul Weller fan.
So would you have done it if you look like someone and they think you're someone else and they start giving you a free meal? Would you keep
playing?
No,
would you not?
I don't think my acting would be good enough.
I'd have to say something. I love the fact Specsavers replied to this on X and just said posted without comment, which is a great little advert for them, isn't it?
Oh, that's brilliant.
Someone
really
else
good.
has said that's not Weller, it's Iggy Pop, which I can sort of see as well.
I can see a bit
I
like
see
Iggy
that
Pop.
as well. I see that as well.
So, but I just say it's a great little story.
I'll tell you, a hell of a haircut though, isn't it?
It's like yours.
Well, mine's a lot longer than that. But
It
yeah,
is a lot
it's the
longer.
same
Same
colour.
colour.
Same colour. Yeah, exactly. Anyway, let us know what you think. Would you go along with it if you were mistaken for a celebrity and give
For a
lots of
free
freebies?
curry.
Yeah, for free curry. Maybe you would if it was a free curry. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Yeah, I might do it for a curry.
Yeah.
Anyway, don't get me going on that.
It's a Friday. Be a good day for a curry.
Will be. Now, the Chancellor is going to rewrite the government's debt and taxation rules in the budget, unleashing a borrowing spree of up to £50 billion.
However, investors have warned interest rates will remain high, with families expected to be hit with even higher mortgages.
And there, amidst all of this, more concerns about the Prime Minister may break his promise not to raise taxes on working people. Well, that's because he's now told us who he thinks working people are, and it's those people who don't own assets or shares. He also said, actually, it's working people are people who need a cheque at the end of the week, so relying on that income, but can't write a cheque if they need to, which seems to rule out...
It rules out a lot of people.
A lot of people.
Doesn't it? Well, speaking to Chopper's political podcast, former Conservative Chancellor Lord Lamont slammed the Prime Minister's use of the term.
I dislike this phrase, working people, not just because of its ambiguity, but I think it's deliberately designed to imply working class, which I think is an out-of-date idea, and it's appealing to old-fashioned labour mythology. And I think it's a very unpleasant term to talk about working people. Why is a pensioner not a working person? They've worked all their life. It's ridiculous.
Well, let's talk to former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi, James Price. Morning, James.
Morning.
Working people, it is being redefined.
I mean, you know, the old line, how do you know a politician is lying, their lips are moving, has never felt more true with some of this. I mean, this idea that if you work really hard and you earn more than 6 figures, you're not a working person. That's another definition that Labour have given in recent days. And, you know, that might sound like an awful lot of money, £100,000 a year to some people. That's about $150,000 a year less than a bloke running a large petrol station will earn in Texas these days, right? To put into context how much richer we could and should be if we had the same kind of policies, same kind of economy as some American states. Or actually, frankly, any American state now, because even Mississippi, the poorest state in America, is richer than we are in the UK. And we're not going to be fixing that, fixing people getting wealthier, which means more money for schools, for hospitals, for people to just to live on and enjoy, with the kinds of accountancy, let's call it jiggery-pokery, let's not call it lies, that Labour are going on some of this. You can't just suddenly, with the stroke of a pen, change the fundamentals of what the British economy looks like. You can't just suddenly say, oh, actually, all this debt that students owe, for example, so the student loan book, lots and lots of money in there. Rachel Reeves is going to redefine that money that the students owe to the government as actually that's an asset. Because I can call that in one day, that's an asset instead. Therefore, I can borrow loads more money.
Most people don't pay it back, do they?
Well, indeed. And, you know, so all this kind of jiggery-pokery around here, and that's just on the accountancy rules itself, let alone the definition of working people. And I think the Prime Minister has said that if you own shares, you don't count as a working person, even if you work. Do you guys, either of you or anybody at home, have a pension?
Oh, except, well, yeah.
Pensions, what do they have in them? They have shares in them. So if anybody at home has got a pension, sorry, you're not a working person anymore, your taxes are going to go up under Keir Starmer. I mean, it's absolutely extraordinary, and I don't think the market is going to buy it one bit.
Well, talking about the market, there's a lot of nervousness around this, especially this debt fiddle, as it's been described in the Telegraph today. So this is Rachel Reeves rewriting Britain's debt rules to unleash this borrowing spree of up to £50 billion. So nervousness from the markets, they're watching very, very closely. Reports in the Telegraph today that they're not over the mini-budget under Liz Truss. So there's so much nervousness. I mean, it's the last thing that's needed.
Yeah, absolutely right. I think that the Chancellor has come in to office saying, I'm going to be honest, I'm going to be responsible, transparent, all these things. It turns out she plagiarised the book that she wrote. It turns out in some revelations yesterday that she has not been exactly accurate about her business career, describing herself as an economist working in a bank, and it turns out that that isn't actually true either. She seems to spend more time, I think, changing her hair colour several times.
Oh, come on, she's
in anticipation of this. No, she's changed it back again, right?
But let's keep it on the nice of stuff like that. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter.
Well, it wouldn't matter if it was the case that this budget was going to be a big success and was going to be very helpful, and the market was all tickety-boo about all this. But it's clearly not. I think the fundamentals of the British economy are pretty weak. We have to realise that we're not a very wealthy country anymore, right? When, you know, a lot of people will come on this programme and say rightly that we're not building as much or making as much anymore. That's been disincentivised.
All right, hold on. Yeah, all right. Well, let's pick you up on that then, because I mean the whole point of this 50. It sounds it's very confusing to those of us who aren't economists and aren't in government. But this changing of the rules to allow borrowing of 50 billion is specifically and can only be used for capital investment. Now, that means capital expenditure. That means building projects. You said, well, we're not building enough. Well, actually, we're going to start building if we borrow this money.
The main reason we've not been building enough in terms of infrastructure, we're talking, you know, you and I get here on road or rail, but economists use infrastructure, as Margaret Thatcher once said. The reason we've not been building enough of that, or enough houses, or enough exciting new kind of technological things, is mostly actually because the government's been getting in the way of it and preventing these things from getting built. And when the government does try and do something, look at something like HS2. It's taken decades. We haven't built almost any of it yet. It's gone massively over over budget. And so I just don't trust that government is very good at doing these things. What it should be doing, if it wants to have these things be created, is getting out of the way. It's not the US government that created this amazing rocket ship that Elon Musk used that he managed to catch out of midair using these giant robot arms. When you've got an economy as exciting and dynamic as the American one that can make that kind of stuff, then you could go and borrow a load more money. But because we haven't been changing any of the fundamentals and we make it so difficult for people to perform business tasks here in the country, it's no surprise that we're projected to lose more entrepreneurs, more millionaires than any other country in the world over the next 5 years, where taxes are as high as they are and things like crime are getting worse as well, which also makes people not want to come here and invest money in the UK. And none of that is going to change with the kind of accountancy messing around that the Chancellor is talking about here.
Can I ask about CHOGM? Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting that's taking place in Samoa at the moment. Sir Keir Starmer said this week he wants to discuss current challenges. He wants to talk with Commonwealth countries about things like climate change rather than slavery reparations. But some reports that countries are set to defy him today and ask for slavery reparations. What do you make of this?
I think this is absolutely astonishing. I mean, it gives a complete lie to this nonsense from a few weeks ago that the United Kingdom unilaterally has decided to give up some of its territory. These Chagos Islands in the South Indian Ocean that are of massive strategic importance. This is British territory, and David Lammy and Keir Starmer have given this up, and they've given it up largely because of what they call soft power. Well, if soft power was so useful and so important, surely at this Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, people would be saying, oh, thank you so much. Your wonderful soft power is doing so much great work. We're not going to ask for anything else. Instead, of course, it's shown Britain as being as weak as it is under this government, I'm afraid, and asking for slavery reparations. Well, where are my reparations for the fact that, you know, Welsh and Anglo-Saxon people have been put down by the Normans from the French or from the Romans, right? We know the Roman invasion of the United Kingdom or England or whatever you want to call it, 1,000 years ago, or 2,000 years ago almost, was terrible, and lots of people got enslaved and moved around there. We're getting reparations from Giorgia Meloni in Italy? No, of course not. Are we going to get any thanks for the fact that it was the Royal Navy that spent 50 years and lost tens of thousands of men stopping the slave trade? Are these people asking for reparations from other West African countries who were also complicit in the slave trade? I mean, this stuff is absolute nonsense. And if Keir Starmer is messing around with this and not just saying, this is never going to happen, this is nonsense, we're a proper grown-up, serious country that does more good in the world than almost anywhere else, then he's not a leader that we need.
OK. Look, for now, thank you very much indeed. We'll catch up with you a little bit later on, James. Let's stick with Samoa, though, should we? Because the King told world leaders that the past cannot be changed in his address to the Commonwealth Summit in Samoa amid growing calls, as we just heard, for slavery reparations.
Well, he went on to say that nations can commit to right inequalities and learn lessons from what he described as a painful past.
Let's head to Samoa. Our royal correspondent Cameron Walker is there. What are we to make of what the King said, Cameron?
Well, Stephen, it was an incredibly important day for the King because it was a landmark speech that he delivered, the first time he has done so as head of the Commonwealth, an institution which he clearly deeply cares about. The institution is around 75 years old, which happens to be the same age as him. And he did start his speech, actually, by talking about the past, but not the past we're perhaps going to get onto when it comes to reparations and slavery. But he talked about the legacy of his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and his grandfather, George VI, those pioneers when it comes to the early days of the Commonwealth, now a strong family of nations of 56. So take a look at what he said.
The Commonwealth mattered a great deal to my dear mother, the late Queen. Her commitment to you all, as that of my grandfather, King George VI, before her, is one which has helped to shape my own life for as long as I can remember.
But of course there was a huge elephant in the room, and that is, as you have been discussing, those reparations, those calls for reparations, I should say. The Chancellor of the Exchequer has ruled out in an interview this week that the British government will not be paying countries for Britain's role in the historical slave trade. The Prime Minister, equally, he is also in Samoa this week. He didn't want to get into the issue of reparations either. King Charles clearly follows advice from the government, so I suspect his speech did go past number 10 before the King delivered it, making sure that they were essentially on the same page when it comes to their line on whether or not to pay reparations. So what the King did do is acknowledge the past, but that was as far as he went. So take a listen to what he said.
our cohesion requires that we acknowledge where we have come from. I understand from listening to people across the Commonwealth how the most painful aspects of our past continue to resonate. It is vital, therefore, that we understand our history to guide us to make the right choices in the future.
So it looks like both the King and the British government is very much wanting to look towards the future. But of course, the problem is that Baroness Scotland, who is the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, she's stepping down this year. And the three candidates to succeed her, which is being voted on by the heads of government this week in Samoa, all three of them have called for the countries which have been affected by slavery and colonialism. You may be able to hear a big siren in the background. That is one of the several motorcades carrying one of the 56 heads of government on the way to a dinner with King Charles III, which is happening this evening, my time, of course, during our breakfast programme today. But the other thing the King talked about was our shared threats, and what he means by that, one of his passions, climate change, but perhaps more importantly, some might see, is the global conflicts around the world, particularly with the war in Ukraine, particularly with the wars in the Middle East. And he really emphasised to those global leaders during his meeting that we are stronger together than we are divided.
OK. Cameron Walker there for us in Samoa. Thank you very much indeed.
The whole reparations thing, I just find extraordinary. I just find it extraordinary. And when you look at what people are asking for...
Oh, it's trillions. I mean, Barbados is something like 3 trillion, isn't it?
Yes, so 3.9 trillion is owed to Barbados by Britain, according to their Prime Minister. 18.8 trillion is owed to 14 former colonies, according to the Brattle Group report, which is at the University of the West Indies. And that is an underestimate, according to United Nations judge Patrick Robinson, though he hasn't suggested a bigger figure. That's on top of 200 billion, which 15 nations are calling for. That should be 205 billion, according to the Dean of Trinity College in Cambridgeshire, as well. I mean, look, we'd be totally bankrupt.
Yeah.
And it's money that we'd be paying. We have nothing to do with the slave trade, to people who also weren't affected by the slave trade directly.
No.
I mean, it's all, you've got to, at some point, you've got to draw a line.
But it's a difficult one for the Labour government now, isn't it, when you've got the likes of our own Foreign Secretary, David Lammy, who is a backbencher, was calling for reparations.
Yes, he was.
So that's an awkward one, isn't it? I mean,
and he tied it into white privilege.
He did.
When they were in opposition. So that's going to come back to haunt him on this one.
Yeah.
And we're talking to the government a little bit later on this morning, so we should put all of those questions to the Chief Secretary to the Treasury when he's on the programme.
Now, at almost 18 minutes past 6, let's take a look at some other stories coming into the newsroom this morning.
Well, the government's proposed ban on smoking in pub gardens is going to be reversed after backlash from the public. Instead, it's only expected to be prohibited outside hospitals and schools.
Prosecutors in California have recommended that the Menendez brothers be resentenced for the murder of their parents back in 1989. The move would mean Lyle and Eric could be eligible for parole immediately after spending 34 years behind bars. Their story was recently pushed into the spotlight following a Netflix series depicting their lives.
Bruce Springsteen has brought some star power to the US election. He's backing Kamala Harris. He was at a rally overnight in Georgia.
There is only one candidate in this election who holds those principles dear, Kamala Harris. She's running to be the 47th president of the United States. Donald Trump is running to be an American tyrant.
Well, meanwhile, the Trump campaign took to Arizona, labelling President Biden and Vice President Kamala Harris a disgrace to our country as he seeks to court voters in the crucial state.
With your help, 12 days from now, we're going to win Arizona. We're going to defeat Kamala Harris. And we're going to make America great again. That's what we're going to do.
It's all too close to call.
Oh, it really is, yeah.
Look at the polls on that one. You just cannot call it. Anyone who tells you otherwise, anyone who says it's a slam dunk for either side is making it up.
Yeah, it's
because you
really
just
on a
can't
knife
call it.
edge, isn't it?
Absolutely. Which means, actually, whoever wins is going to be a bit problematic. You don't want a clear victory either which way, don't you?
You do. You certainly do. I mean, not very long to go at all now, just days until the US election.
Yes, and we will have full coverage right through the night as those results come in. Won't we?
We will.
We shall be
really
here
looking
for you.
forward to it,
I don't know what time we go on air. Because if it's 10 or midnight...
It will be late.
But then we'll be right through till 6 o'clock in the morning. So if you're a bit of an election fan, you should get the result, hopefully, during our time on air. So do join us for that.
Yes, fingers crossed. It only happens every once every 4 years. It's worth staying up for, isn't it?
Yeah.
That's what I think, anyway. Now, at 6:20, it's time for your weather with Alex Deacon.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales, dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Still to come, homeless charities face funding cuts worth £1 billion. Find out more in just a moment.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Britain's Newsroom, weekday mornings from 9:30.
We shouldn't have to do this, Rebecca. These men should have been compensated long ago.
They shouldn't have to fight for recognition. And this is what's happened over the last 72 years. So all the way through from the test through to the present day, they've known that something happened to them. They've seen what they've been through, their medical conditions, the fact that many of these servicemen died well before their time. And they were ignored in a way that other countries didn't ignore their similar testing veterans. So other nuclear powers across the world, the US, for example, compensated and recognised their nuclear testing veterans many, many years ago. Yet, unfortunately, successive governments in the UK failed to do that. After the long campaign for medallic recognition, finally, these servicemen received medallic recognition, but it came in a jiffy bag in the post, which is not the way to honour the service that these men gave to our country. There needs to be an understanding and an uncovering of the truth of what they actually went through. They've been fighting for many years for access to their medical records, for example, urine and blood tests that they know were taken during their service. But when many of these families have tried to access their records, these test results seem to be missing, and there's no explanation as to why this has happened.
What basis does the Ministry of Defence say it's not our responsibility?
Well, we know from other studies across the world and subsequent studies, it showed, staggeringly, that these men were exposed to the same amount of radiation as clean-up workers at Chernobyl.
Yeah.
And it doesn't take a rocket scientist to understand it.
GB News, the People's Channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently. It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it? It's explosive. I mean, this is very good. It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial. And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born. It's everything you need to kickstart your evening. Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it. That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's 6:26 now. Homelessness charities are warning the government that the sector is really on a cliff edge ahead of the budget.
Yes, stretched services are struggling to cope with an increase in demand and funding cuts.
Well, charities fear £1 billion of funding could disappear from the sector, as our East Midlands reporter Will Hollis has the story.
First light, an early start for Framework's street outreach team.
Could be worse, could be raining.
In Mansfield, homelessness has tripled. So has Steph's workload.
Rough sleeping numbers have increased dramatically. There's just not enough suitable accommodation for people at the moment.
Rough sleepers have little. Their complex needs make supporting them tough. Nationally, homelessness has risen by 60% since 2021. Short housing stock means homeless people are stuck on the street.
There's a lack of social housing as well. So even if you do manage to get on the social housing register, you're going to be waiting a really long time for that. So people keep being released from prison to no fixed abode. And then obviously we're picking them up because they're off sleeping.
On top, charities like Framework face a funding crisis.
Services are under immense pressure, not just here in Mansfield, but across the country. Demand is greater, yet funding cannot cover the things that it used to.
I will be finalising my first budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
More than 70 of the biggest homelessness charities signed an open letter to the Chancellor, pleading for secure funding in the autumn budget. It's feared £1 billion will drop from the sector at the end of the year, and some services will close.
All the agencies, all the services are stretched and full to capacity.
Claire McGonigal is Deputy Chief Executive at Framework.
We've seen an explosion of homelessness and massive increases in terms of the need of people. The housing crisis at the moment is unprecedented. There are no affordable units for people to live in. The system is completely blocked up. The wraparound services that people need to recover are just at breaking point themselves.
A Ministry of Housing spokesperson said it's developing a long-term strategy to get the country back on track to end homelessness while addressing the root cause, which includes abolishing no-fault evictions and improving social housing. Back in Mansfield, morning has arrived, but Steph's job is far from finished.
Some of these rough sleepers, we're the only person they see that day. If you take that away, what's going to happen?
Will Hollis, GB News, Mansfield.
Right, we're done now. Thank you.
We're done. Sorry.
We've just, I forgot, I was telling Stephen in the break, I was telling him that I made spinach ricotta malfetti, and you reminded me that I'd promised that I'd bring you some in, and I forgot. So we just had to pinky promise that I'd bring you in some next time. Sorry. Oh, look, you're annoyed now.
I'm not annoyed.
Are you not?
No, I'm not annoyed.
You've forgiven me.
I'm just slightly embarrassed that we got caught out, but that's because in the great world of technical things, my wires come out.
Oh, is that what happened?
Yeah, so I didn't have any idea what was going on. It's quite nice. Right, time for the Great British Giveaway now. And today is the absolutely final day that you could get your hands on a huge amount of money that we're giving away.
£36,000 in tax-free cash.
Angela from Wigan won £30,000 in our last giveaway, and this is what she said about that big win.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I could not believe it. I thought it was a joke. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And yeah, it's given us peace of mind now at night. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter, to do it. It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win, because I don't win anything. This is the first ever prize I've ever won, and it happens to people like me.
Ah, well, Angela won £30,000, and as we were just saying, you could win £36,000 in tax-free cash, but lines close at 5 p.m. today, so you need to get Wiggle on. Here's how.
It's the final day to see how you can win an incredible £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. today. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Best of luck to you. It's going to be brilliant. Whoever gets that phone call, don't know how long it takes to go through all the entries, but you'll be getting a phone call before too long saying, guess what? You've won £36,000.
Oh, imagine that phone call.
One lucky winner. Fantastic.
Good stuff.
Right, still to come for you. It's been all go at the Europa League with a very significant sending off. Paul Coit will have more for you in just a moment.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Northumberland, the A697 is closed in both directions after a lorry overturned with a spillage of chemicals between the Alnwick turn-off at Thrunton and the Newmore Crossroads at Edlingham. In Powys, the A470 remains closed each way between Van Tuymen and Carno for an investigation. Buses replacing trains again today between Shrewsbury and Machynlleth. Some of those trains continuing on to Aberystwyth, though trains are running as normal between Machynlleth and Pwllheli. Trains have been stopped between Leicester and East Midlands Parkway because of a signalling problem. In Oxfordshire, the A34 is closed southbound from Kidlington to the Pear Tree interchange just outside Oxford after an accident. In London, Green Lanes in Palmer's Green is closed off the North Circular at the Clockhouse interchange after an accident. And in Devon, the A374 is closed along Union Street in Plymouth after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
This week is Chocolate Week, the ultimate celebration of everything rich, sweet and indulgent.
Yes, and we now have the best person in the studio with us to satisfy all of your chocolate cravings. We're joined now by master chocolatier Ollie the Choc. Ollie,
hello.
Really good to see you this
Thank
morning.
you for having me.
And you brought some of your chocolate in with you.
I did. I brought some tasting samples. You're very welcome to help yourself.
So what have you got here? Tell us.
So this is my signature chocolate. I call it the Holy Grail. It's got sea salt flakes, crushed Oreo, caramel fudge pieces, very Moorish.
I love a caramel and salt combo, just, you know. I feel like you see it everywhere now. Look,
you won't be disappointed.
Look, I want everyone to see a close-up of this one. Can we get a shot on this one? So this is Oreo, there we are, caramel and salt. Do you want to try some?
You go first. Help yourselves. And then this bar of chocolate is a little bit of a wild card. That's a mystery flavour, so...
OK, I love a mystery.
I'm not going to tell you what that is.
Hold on this one. This one's amazing.
Are you?
Oreo, caramel.
That's my biggest seller.
I'll keep my palate clean for this. So this is a mystery flavour.
You've got to guess what that is.
Is that a nut in there, I see? Right, here we go. Ready?
I'm not saying anything.
Talk us through.
Very crunchy.
For me, I'm all about textures in chocolate.
Me too.
It has got a good crunch to it, hasn't it? It's not the kind of flavour that you would expect.
Oh, I can't get it.
Is it sweet? Is it salty?
No, it's salty, yeah.
It's
Okay.
salty.
Bit more.
Okay.
Bit more.
I mean, just keep going.
Crisps? Wait,
It is crispy, it's crunchy. Could it
Right.
be crisps?
I think it could be crisps. Yeah, it's crisps.
So what flavour?
Salt and vinegar. Cheese and onion.
Yes,
Salt and
nailed it. You know.
Oh, you're much better than me.
Love that.
Game.
Do you know what? I think I've got a bit of a cold, so my taste buds are
Oh,
off.
you're going to blame that, are you?
That's my excuse. That's delicious.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight
and analysis, crunching the numbers
As we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
Who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's sports time. Paul Coit is here with us. Morning.
Good morning.
Morning.
You had a late one last night, didn't you? Had a late one.
I did have quite a late one.
Spurs?
Yes, I did. It's quite late last night because not only is the game, and then I usually have a chat with the man of the match in front of some people, and then it's getting home. It's night that traffic.
Oh, no.
So anyway, I've only just got home, and now I'm in here.
Hey.
Yeah, well done. Should we talk about a big red card?
Yes. Fenerbahce against Manchester United. So Fenerbahce from Turkey, from Istanbul. The manager is Jose Mourinho, who, of course, managed Manchester United. So the result was 1-1. Christian Eriksen put Manchester United one up with a very good goal. But in true Man United style, they couldn't hold a lead, and then it went 1-1. But more importantly, Jose Mourinho got himself sent off. I don't know whether he just does this to get himself at the centre of attention, which always seems to be the case. He said they should have had a penalty. It wasn't a penalty. He just created, and look at the arms out. What are you thinking? What are you thinking? And there's the referee saying, I'm not having any of your nonsense. Joseph, look, this is the red card. How could you possibly give me a red? It's like, come on, that's what you were expecting, wasn't it, Jose? Let's hear what Jose had to say after the game. Always has to be very careful about what he says about the referee, but you know what he's thinking.
You look like you spoke to Onana at half-time. Can you tell us what you said to him? And also...
I cannot tell you because...
OK, and can you appeal against this red card, or would you consider getting in the laundry basket again like at Chelsea?
If I appeal, I will get 6 months ban. So there is nothing to do. Since Sevilla, Roma final, there is nothing to do. It is what it is.
Poor Jose. He's such a victim, isn't he? By the way, the laundry basket, when he mentioned the laundry basket for Chelsea, that goes back a few years, because when he was Chelsea manager and he'd been given a red card and had been banned, he wasn't allowed to go to the dressing room. So what they did, he actually hid.
No.
Yeah.
And they wheeled him out.
And they wheeled him in the laundry. Out he pops. This is what I want you to do. Wheeled him back out again without anybody knowing about. And the other thing he mentioned, the Roma-Sevilla final, is when he goes, I don't want that to happen again. I don't expect... This is when he actually disputed the result of the game. As if that would happen in politics in America.
Can you imagine?
There we are. But that's what happened. So Jose there, always the victim. Spurs beat AZ or AZ Alkmaar. The game that I was at 1-0.
They're Dutch, aren't they?
They are Dutch, yeah. They won. Spurs did it through a penalty. But the thing is, it was a bizarre...
Took long enough.
It did. You know, it did. Did you see that?
Well, I only watched the first half.
For them, it took ages for them to decide who was going to take the penalty. So James Maddison gets the penalty. He's ready to take it. Richarlison, who's just come back, Brazilian, he's going, well, I'd like it. I could do with scoring. So there was a little bit of argy-bargy, and then James Maddison, who was the captain, said, OK, go on then, you take it. So he did take it, and he managed to score the goal. The star of the show is a 17-year-old by the name of Mikey Moore, who... Now, Mikey Moore, he's a fantastic winger, 17, as I said, and James Maddison, said to him, he called it was like playing with Neymar.
Oh, really?
Whereas Ange Postecoglou was trying to keep his feet on the ground.
Yeah.
And it didn't really work when you've got one of your players saying he was playing like Neymar, but he was terrific. Other results, Rangers beat FCSB, formerly known as Steaua Bucharest.
Right.
Anyway, 4-0, so a great result for Rangers. And in the Conference League, Chelsea beat Panathinaikos in Greece 4-1. That was in Athens. By the way, a nice tribute as well to George Baldock, who, as we know, played at Panathinaikos. I think we've got that. See, this is really nice, and that's what Chelsea did before the game, and that was classy. So they played tribute to George there, which was a nice touch. Hearts beat Omonia Nicosia from Cyprus, and I bet you've never heard of New Saints, have you?
New Saints?
New Saints.
No.
See, I thought they were a band.
Sounds like a band.
I know, but New Saints are a Welsh team. They beat Astana from Kazakhstan 2-0. It sounds like I'm delving really deeply into Europa League football, but it's the first time that a domestic Welsh side has won a major European match. So well done to them, although they play in Oswestry, which is in England.
Yeah.
Because they merged with
what's going on with dare I ask about the cricket?
Yeah, I mean, there's not any too much news this morning because they've only started recently, so just within the last half an hour. So Pakistan 89 for 3, England 267, so they just need to take early wickets.
Yeah.
But as things change, of course, I'll let you know.
Keep us posted. And don't do any guessing, because you'll be wrong.
Guessing? Oh, me?
Yes.
Yes. No, I know.
Last week we had that whole debacle, didn't we?
Well,
it was like, we're playing really well, and you were like,
they're
no,
doing
it's
well.
all changed.
Actually, since you said that, it's turned. And then he went, oh, it's not going well. I went, actually, it's going quite well at the moment.
No, I just give up.
We'll be fine. We'll work through it together.
We'll get there. We'll get there. All right, Paul, thanks very much indeed.
Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think. So every day we'll be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking, has Labour declared a class war on Middle Britain? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned.
Yeah, the final result announced in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon. And for all of our latest polls, news and how to vote, just get online. Go to gbnews.com/poll.
Now, still to come, could the Menendez brothers be freed from jail? Find out all the details in just a moment.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
Sir Jacob Rees-Mogg's State of the Nation, Monday to Thursday from 8 p.m.
You must be so proud of your daughter being so just amazingly brave and a model for other people who face illness.
I think we're proud of her all day, every day, and always have been. Liz has always given her all to anything she put her mind to, whether that was studying for her GCSE exams at school or whether it's been her photography and battling cancer. Liz never does anything by half, and we are so incredibly proud of her each and every day.
And Liz, I noticed a wonderful line from you saying that when you've got cancer, A-levels don't matter so much. That seems to me to be a very reasonable view to take and has given you then the chance to do these other amazing things that you will be doing more of in future with the London Ambulance Service. And I imagine many people will want to help you with your bucket list because they've now seen you and seen how brave you are.
Yeah, I mean, hopefully we've already been overwhelmed by the responses and the support by so many people. I think when my mum originally posted the list, it received like 4,000 replies. It was insane, and still there's more. So from the bottom of our hearts, and especially mine, we just want to say thank you, because there's nothing that forces anyone to get in touch and say, hey, I have something you can do, pop over and do this or that, or it's just out of the generosity of their hearts. So thank you.
GB News, the People's Channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking, this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
6:45, let's have a look at some front pages for you this morning.
And Rachel Reeves risks hurting pensioners, says The Times, as Labour peer Lord Blunkett criticises the Chancellor's plans for national insurance hikes for employers.
Similar front page for The Telegraph, calling on the Chancellor's rewriting of debt and taxation rules a fiddle.
The Daily Mail also leads on budget speculation, saying it will punish mortgage holders after the PM's reworked definition of working people.
The Guardian has the PM ruling out reparations for slavery, but says he could back non-cash alternatives.
And the Daily Express has an investigation into online fraudsters, ripping off the poppy appeal by selling fake poppies.
Disgraceful,
That is
I say.
disgraceful.
It really is.
Oh,
really is.
gosh.
Right, let's have a chat through all of that with Candice Holdsworth and Andy Williams. Good to see you both this morning.
Morning.
Reparations getting a lot of headlines this morning. Before we have a chat about that, let's hear what Kemi Badenoch, of course, one of the two running for Tory leadership, this is what she had to say last night on GB News.
The idea that paying reparations, because some countries have demanded it, means that everything is going to be OK is for the birds. They will keep coming back for more and more. There's never an end to requests for things like reparations. Personally, I mean, you heard what I said at the debate. I think these things are a scam.
A scam, Andy?
I don't really like that language. I think it's typically Kemi Badenoch to use a word like scam. But I do broadly agree with her, actually. I don't think practically, I don't think it's something that we can do. I don't think we can afford it as a country for a start. And her point about, well, where does it end, I think is reasonably well made. Where do you draw the line on things like that? Who decides how a country behaved 250 years ago, 300 years ago? I think it's really, really tricky. I completely understand the sentiment from many countries who think, actually, we've had decades and even centuries of being sort of economically behind and ancestors having their lives kind of torn up and damaged. But I don't think paying out now is the right answer.
So are we going to get reparations from Danish countries and things?
Well, that's so true. People say, how far back do you go? You can choose to go back 200 years to the Atlantic slave trade, but you can go back to the ancient era when, you know, Britons were enslaved by invaders from other parts of the world. I agree with Andy. I think across the political spectrum, people are very sceptical of this idea of reparations. One, practically, because, I mean, the cost is absolutely enormous. But two, morally, I mean, how can you hold people today responsible for what was done 200 years ago? Especially when, you know, owning slaves and trading slaves was a very elite occupation. I mean, the vast majority of people did not do that. They were still fighting for their rights in many ways. And can you say that the descendants of those people should be responsible for making up for something they had nothing to do with?
I think the challenge for the government is obviously that David Lammy, now he's Foreign Secretary, when he was just a backbencher, he was very stridently arguing for reparations, and that's on the record. See, now he's Foreign Secretary, he has to toe the line with the government.
Yeah, well, what do you think of that? As someone who is, shall we say, more left-leaning, Andy?
Could say that.
Yeah, right. So can David Lammy continue in his position when he's at odds with what the government is now saying?
Yeah, I think of course he can. I mean, the whole point of going into government is that as soon as you're on that front bench, you're a team, you have to toe the line, you have to fall into line with government policy. And David Lammy has his personal views, he has to leave them at the door. And I think that's the right thing to do.
Candice, what do you make of The Guardian here? So the Prime Minister is open to talking about non-financial reparations in terms of the slave trade.
Yeah, so that's interesting. So instead of paying a cash amount, he'd be looking at things like maybe giving an apology, some form of debt relief, when developing countries owe developed countries loans that they've been made to them, so just making the interest payments a bit lower on that, funding health and education programs. What is interesting, though, is that we used to do this. So you used to have the Department for International Development, but then that was closed down. So that was what they viewed as a form of restorative justice. So, wealthy countries helping poorer countries. It's become a little politically unpalatable, though. Even now, when Rachel Reeves gave money to Ukraine or to India, people don't like it. They say that, we've got struggling people in our country, we shouldn't be funding other people. So it's interesting that it's become slightly more controversial now, like the idea of foreign aid.
And it's been rumoured that we're going to cut back on foreign aid budgets again in the budget next week, which I think is a real shame, because actually, apart from the moral case for giving foreign aid to countries that need it, there's also a very practical sort of soft power element. It's actually good for Britain's place in the world.
Yeah, well, you know what? I would agree with you on that, and I think there is a moral responsibility. I just think you have to say, look, if we're taking money off pensioners at the minute, we've got to look about whether we really can be giving money away to other countries.
Well, I'm sure there's a case to look at where the money's going. There are obviously some countries and some parts of the world that need that money more than others.
Andy, let's have a look at... I was going to talk about something else, but no, I've been told the Times.
This is interesting.
Oh, right, OK.
And you should as well.
I do, but the depleted military is not ready for war, says the Defence Secretary.
Yeah, so John Healey is saying that basically our military is not fit for purpose. He says that if British Armed Forces were sort of forced into combat tomorrow, if there was a war that blew up somewhere, that we wouldn't necessarily be able to hold our own, which is really, really worrying.
Well, we wouldn't.
That's a scary prospect.
I mean, the figures are... the number of people we've got employed is ridiculously low at the moment, and they haven't got the resources.
Yeah.
No, exactly, and there's obviously huge pressure on the UK to increase the proportion of... or spending as a proportion of GDP on the military. I think that will come to the fore even more so if Trump wins the election in 2 weeks, because he's been putting huge pressure on European countries to do that. But no, I mean, our military is a mess.
Yes.
And it comes back to the point of, I know we don't have unlimited money, but it comes back to the point of underinvestment. We have underinvested in technology in our military and in personnel.
It's such an interesting point. There are things that we need to spend on, but I feel like the Chancellor is massively constrained in what she can spend. And you can look at the long-term benefits of things like that. I do understand that reasoning, that things like military technology, MRI scanners in hospitals, they are massively important. But what do we do if the markets react so badly to spending and borrowing?
Well, that's going to be the issue. It's a problem we've had with the military, you say underinvestment, but it was strategic, wasn't it? It was a case of saying, there are no global conflicts. We're in a time of peace, therefore we don't need to keep having such a big army, which is actually very short-term thinking.
Yeah, that's not the case anymore, is it?
No, well, exactly.
Yes.
And you can't build it up very quickly.
I know, and Britain plays a really important role in global conflicts. Everything that's been going on in the Middle East, it's the British have been heavily involved in trying to prevent any sort of escalation going on, immediately sent a ship there when it looked like conflict was about to break out. We're involved in the defence of Israel when Iran was launching an attack. It's we can't retreat from our global responsibility. It's really important.
No. Candice, let's stay with you, shall we, and look at The Sun and the proposed ban on smoking in pub gardens on the cusp of being dropped.
So this is fascinating. So, there was a huge backlash when it was announced that the Labour government could be looking at banning outdoor smoking. And many people were like, why? That just sounds ridiculous. And one of the things that people said, it was a very practical thing, was this could damage the hospitality industry. And it looks like the Labour government agrees, actually, and they're like, no. And this is why you need to be very pragmatic in politics, because although there is a health aspect to it, Chris Whitty's pushing this massively, he's saying it's going to take strain off the NHS, ultimately, you have to make compromises, and if it is going to result in pubs closing down or restaurants closing down, that would be a bit of a disaster.
Why didn't they think of this before they announced it?
I completely agree. I thought it was a bit mad at the time. And I'm glad that, I mean, by the sounds of it, Morgan McSweeney has personally got involved and said, this doesn't make sense, there's no real evidence for it, and the public hate it. And more so, the hospitality industry are leaning on us heavily to say, this is the last thing we need when we have 500 pubs closed last year.
Yeah.
And so it's just further damage to the hospitality industry.
OK. Candice, Andy, thanks very much indeed.
Let's have a look at your weather with Alex Deacon.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales, dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
A chilly start will give way to a lovely, warm afternoon. Boxed Heat Pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Northumberland, the A697 is closed each way between Thrunton and the Newmore Crossroads at Eglingham after a lorry overturn. There's also a chemical spill there to clear. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, there are two lanes closed eastbound, where a vehicle caught fire between junctions 31 and 32 from Castleford to Pontefract, causing queues. In Powys, the A470 remains closed each way between Glantoyman and Carno for an investigation. Buses replacing trains again today between Shrewsbury and McCunliffe. Trains have been stopped between Leicester and East Midlands Parkway and Peterborough because of a signalling problem. In Oxfordshire on the A34, there's a lane closed southbound from Kidlington to the Pear Tree interchange at Oxford for repairs after an accident. And in London, Green Lanes is closed off the North Circular at the Clockhouse interchange at Palmer's Green after an accident.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year. Extra cash in your bank account that you can do whatever you like with. Make sure you don't miss out. Get your entry in now. Just one entry could make you the winner. For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. this Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/your say. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Good morning. The Prime Minister paves the way for tax rises.
Sir Keir Starmer declares people with assets do not fit into his definition of working people, paving the way for possible tax hikes.
Well, that's as the Chancellor has warned a £50 billion borrowing spree risks raising interest rates.
Up in smoke, the government U-turn on their decision to ban smoking from pub gardens following heavy backlash.
The King delivers a landmark speech in Samoa as he urges world leaders to right inequalities that endure.
It seems to me that these connections between us are more precious than ever. Together we are wiser, stronger, and more able to respond to the...
I'm live from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, bringing you the latest analysis from the King's speech, and while he's looking towards the future rather than the past.
Inheritance tax warning. As the government looks to increase the amount of money it raises from the tax, we'll be debating whether it's time to get rid of it completely.
Now, could the next royal wedding be yours?
Yes, I hope so.
Not marrying a prince, but plans are floated to possibly allow weddings on the Balmoral estate. Is that really a good idea?
In sport, Manchester United drew 1-1 away at Jose Mourinho's Fenerbahce, and he got himself sent off in the process. Wins in Europe for Spurs, Rangers, Chelsea and Hearts. And next week is the 50th anniversary of one of the greatest fights in boxing history, the Rumble in the Jungle.
A real mishmash of weather today. Pretty dull for some, bright for others. Bit of heavy rain and some gusty winds. Find out who gets what. Join me later for the weather.
Just gone 7 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast. Now, have you been in a coffee shop recently or a corner shop or anything like that and spotted shoplifting taking place? People
I've
just
never
pinching
seen
things.
it.
I see it all the time.
Do you?
Yeah, especially in London. Do you not?
You live in a very bad area.
Clearly.
I did see it in Sainsbury's, actually.
Well, there you go.
Mm.
No, I've been in lots of coffee shops where I've actually just seen people walk in and just clear the shelves and then walk back out again.
Really?
And, yeah, and new figures out today, 2 thefts a minute in shops across Britain. So it is happening not just in my area, it would seem.
You're not telling me these places don't have CCTV?
But nothing happens.
Nothing happens is the point, yeah. 2 a minute, and that has doubled as a rate from 2020, and that was during the pandemic, where you'd imagine people were pretty hard up. But yeah, 2 thefts a minute in shops across Britain.
So nobody chases because you can't actually, it's not sensible to be able to say, well, if you see it happen, if you're working in the shop, that you go running after someone. It's just like, listen, it's not worth it.
Well, they got, so when I saw it, they got stopped and they just chucked a load of booze in a bag and were walking out the supermarket.
Right.
And they got stopped and they wrestled the bag off them, and this kid was complaining, but then they let him go.
Yeah.
Yeah. I worked in a record shop years ago, and I remember chasing after someone. You know how this is going to end. When chasing after someone who'd stolen a load of CDs, and the security guy, and I've got there, I've gone, I don't know what to do now.
Yeah, this is it.
I'm not really sure what to do.
I wouldn't run after anybody. You don't know what they've got on them.
Yeah.
You don't know if they've taken anything. I wouldn't risk it.
I just let people get away with it, though.
But that's right. You can't.
But then that's where you rely on the police, and then the police are underfunded, understaffed.
So would you say
fewer
anything?
bobbies on the beat?
Let's say it was someone then that you were not intimidated by in the slightest. That's
not
a very,
many
very
people.
old lady comes in and starts it. Would you then say something?
I think it would.
Or would you not? Or would you let them know that you'd seen what they'd done?
If it was an old lady, or if it was someone who looked like they may be
Needed
desperate, I'd keep my mouth shut.
Yeah,
I'm saying as in you wouldn't be intimidated by them.
Yeah, but then there are people that are probably desperate people that need
I think there are times. You can't
just
justify
take it, okay?
But there are situations where some people are desperate, and I think there's a line you have to draw between that and people who are just after a quick buck.
Yeah.
And then I would say something. I would say something.
Would you?
I would.
What would you say?
What do you think you're doing? What do you think you're doing? Put that back.
OK, so it's role play. So, well, I'm having one of these. Have what I like. What are you going to do about it?
So I shall call the police immediately.
OK, well, in that case, there we are.
Sound like Captain Mannering.
That was very good.
But I would say something. I'm not one to keep my mouth shut if I see someone doing something like that.
Oh, good for you. You're a braver man than I am.
Well, stupid.
But I think what we're dealing with now is criminal gangs. I mean, it's a sophisticated
That's the
operation.
problem.
They are
you're
quick.
somewhere else
Yes.
now.
Yeah.
Let us know what you think. Is that something that you've witnessed in your local area? gbnews.com/your say.
Right, the Chancellor is going to rewrite the government's debt and taxation rules in the budget next week, apparently, unleashing a borrowing spree of £50 billion.
However, investors have warned that interest rates will remain high, with families expected to be hit with even higher mortgages.
There are also concerns that the Prime Minister may break his promise, do you remember this one before the election, that he was not raising taxes on working people, talking about income tax primarily on that one. Because he's now finally described what working people are. And it's people who don't have any assets or any shares or can't write a cheque in an emergency.
It's quite a narrow definition, isn't it, really? Well, speaking to Chopper's political podcast, former Conservative Chancellor Lord Lamont slammed the Prime Minister's use of the term.
I dislike this phrase, working people, not just because of its ambiguity, but I think it's deliberately designed to imply working class, which I think is an out-of-date idea, and it's appealing to old-fashioned labour mythology. And I think it's a very unpleasant term to talk about working people. Why is a pensioner not a working person? They've worked all their life. It's ridiculous.
Let's talk to former Chief of Staff to Nadeem Zahawi, James Price. Good to see you this one. Just on that point, he makes a very good point, actually, does Lord Lamont, in saying, you know, you don't stop being a working person just when you retire, for example. I mean, it's a very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think it goes to the heart of how this working person definition is complete nonsense. This is not a proper economist's term or anything like that. I think for a while Labour were trying to say hard-working people in work when they were in opposition, which is, again, trying to narrow these things down even more. And I think that Lord Lamont was right there as well, that it's trying to draw kind of class-based distinctions against different people. And I think that's not a very sensible way to kind of cut the economy through in these things. The main point here is that there are various fundamentals about the way that the British economy is operating. Right, it's growing a little bit. It's growing faster than most of the European countries, which is a sort of not it's damning with faint praise because we're way behind lots of other more dynamic economies. And then if you're just going to increase borrowing so that the government can go into infrastructure projects, which are not terribly efficient and not necessarily going to be allocated into the places where they'd be most beneficial, that's not going to get the kind of growth that we need. Now, the main thing to do is the fact that it's so difficult in Britain at the moment to run a business. Lots of people at home will be feeling this. All the kinds of regulations that you've got, whether it's a small business or for great big businesses either, the best thing to do would be for us to get rid of some of this. Can you see how Elon Musk would be able to make the kind of things that he is making in America over here at the moment? There are far too many regulations and things in the way. That's the stuff they should be focusing on.
Yeah, but it's stuff like, I mean, but we've already had the announcements, haven't we, saying, you know, there's going to be all these new workers' rights from day one. Well, I know a number of small business owners who've said, well, I'm not going to hire.
Yeah. I think it's going to cost another $5 billion for that as well. And so all these things, it just makes it more and more difficult. That's why it's been so difficult to build any kind of infrastructure, to build the houses we need to build the exciting new things, that whether it's sort of data centres and things like that, and people kind of complaining against that sort of stuff being built. The good news is there is so much latent potential still in this country. As Tennyson said, though much is taken, much abides. We've still got the language, we've got the time zone, we've got the education, we've got the greatest history probably of any country to inspire people. We've got all these great fundamentals, and it's sort of self-inflicted wounds that are kind of holding us back. It's too much red tape, it's too many different rules, it's making things too difficult to get investment coming in. And then Labour could change all of that with a few sweeps of a pen. What they can't change with a few sweeps of a pen is the kind of fundamentals as the market sees it, and the fact that now it's looking like the 10-year gilt to sell. So government borrowing is getting higher and higher. It's higher than it was when Liz Truss had her moment there, and that's going to lead to higher mortgages. No one's yet running around saying Labour have crashed the economy the way they did under Liz Truss, but maybe after the budget we might see some of that.
Well, there is a nervousness surrounding that, isn't there? What do you make of the Chancellor rewriting borrowing rules?
I just think that it's this kind of, I called it before, accountancy, jiggery-pokery, and it's not changing the kinds of fundamentals. It's making it more likely that a lot of high earners, I think, will end up leaving. At the moment, I think the top 10% of taxpayers pay something like 60% of all the taxes. So those with the broadest shoulders are already paying the highest burden of this. And what is borrowing? Borrowing is just taxes that are being deferred onto future generations. And if you look at the scale of the net debt that we've got as a country, it's numbers I can't get my head around, right? It's trillions and trillions of pounds. And that's before you look into the state pension and public sector pensions that we haven't worked out how we're going to pay for in the future. As a warning to people at home, you're probably not going to get your state pension for a long time if you're a younger person, because we've mismanaged the finances so much, and that weakens our ability, as we heard before in the earlier section, to have a strong military. It weakens our ability for schools and hospitals and things like that. And I just don't have any real faith that politicians are the people who are able to allocate where that money should go better than individuals or families or businesses, aka the people who are watching at home. They should be able to keep their money and spend it better than the government can.
Oh, it doesn't paint a very good picture, does it? To be fair. James, thanks very much indeed.
Thanks, James.
It is quite depressing, isn't it?
We haven't even had the budget yet.
Oh, will you?
Eventually there'll be good news, right?
Yeah.
Well,
5 years,
possibly.
maybe.
I mean, you do. I was saying earlier on to someone, I am concerned that how the markets are going to react to this budget.
Yeah.
Is it going to be like we saw with the mini budget, Liz Truss's mini budget? I mean, I hope not. I really hope not, because that would be very, very bad news for the country, and we need the country to succeed.
But that's what the Telegraph is saying this morning. Traders are still reeling from the fallout of Liz Truss's mini-budget after fears that the former Prime Minister's borrowing plans prompted a bond market meltdown. So there is still that air of nervousness, more than an air, you might suggest. And we've still got 5 days to go until the budget. I haven't felt this sense of nervousness around a budget before, I don't think.
Dread.
And dread.
But to be fair, we have been told, the Prime Minister said, like, on the first week, didn't he, it's going to be a really bad budget.
Well, painful, I think, was the word, wasn't it? Painful. And difficult decisions to be made. So we've been briefed, haven't we? Perhaps that's why there is this fear surrounding it.
But now the idea that he's now defining working people as being actually a very small group of the population would indicate that perhaps they can raise income tax on everybody else.
That's what we think.
Maybe not.
Yeah. gbnews.com/you'll say.
Right, the King has told world leaders that the past cannot be changed as he was speaking to the Commonwealth Summit in Samoa amid these growing calls for slavery reparations.
Well, joining us live from Samoa is our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good morning to you, Cameron, or good evening, your time.
Yeah, it certainly is a good evening, Ellie. And in fact, the King is off to a dinner very shortly celebrating the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. And it was an incredibly important day at the opening ceremony for him, because it was the first time he delivered a landmark speech as head of the Commonwealth. Of course, a role he took over from his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II. And during his speech, he started off really quite poignantly by talking about the legacy of his mother and indeed his grandfather, King George VI, in the very early pioneering days of the Commonwealth 75 years ago, which also happens to be pretty much King Charles's age. And the King once again recommitted his lifelong commitment to the Commonwealth family of nations, 56 independent nations around the world. But particularly poignant, him talking about his mother. So take a listen.
The Commonwealth mattered a great deal to my dear mother, the late Queen. Her commitment to you all, as that of my grandfather, King George VI, before her, is one which has helped to shape my own life for as long as I can remember.
But of course, the elephant in the room was calls for reparations from some nations, particularly the Caribbean nations, actually. And King Charles, in his speech, didn't directly address reparations, and he certainly didn't offer any kind of formal apology. But what he did do was acknowledge the past. So take a listen to what he said.
Our cohesion requires that we acknowledge where we have come from. I understand from listening to people across the Commonwealth how the most painful aspects of our past continue to resonate. It is vital, therefore, that we understand our history to guide us to make the right choices in the future.
Now, the King is in an awkward position because, of course, he is a constitutional monarch, so takes his advice from the government. And this week, both the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, and the Prime Minister, Keir Starmer, who is also in Samoa for the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting, have ruled out the British government paying any kind of reparations to countries who were caught up in either slavery or colonialism. And King Charles, you know, very much, I suspect his speech was given a look over by number 10 Downing Street before he delivered it, as of course is custom. But another perhaps problem for not necessarily the King but the British government, but also by extension the King perhaps, is Baroness Scotland, who is the Secretary General of the Commonwealth. She's stepping down this year, and all three potential successors of her have all called for reparations from countries, two countries who are caught up in slavery and colonialisation. So that could cause some issues down the line. But King Charles's other focus was threats to the 56 Commonwealth nations. Climate change, of course, a huge passion of his, but also the wars in Ukraine, but also the wars in the Middle East. He didn't directly refer to those wars, but what he did say was talking about perhaps an increasingly uncertain world. And what he did emphasise is that we are stronger together than apart.
OK, Cameron, thanks very much indeed.
Thank you.
She was just looking at Samoa. It's one of those places you've heard of, but you wonder where it is.
It's in the middle of nowhere.
It's so far away.
It's very far away from home, isn't it? It's in the middle of the Pacific Ocean. It's
sort of near Fiji and Tonga and Matuautu.
Oh, right, yeah.
But honestly, it's just like...
It's off the east coast of Australia by a long way, isn't it?
By a very long way.
And then it's Hawaii is the next thing, isn't it? Over to its...
I don't know where Hawaii is on the map.
It's over there.
Oh, thanks.
Just in the middle of the ocean. It's amazing. And that's where Cameron Walker is right now.
It's extraordinary.
It's amazing to think about, isn't it? Yeah.
How anyone ever got there in the first place? That's what I wonder about these things.
Yeah, I think about that all the time. Genuinely.
Do you really?
Yeah.
Are you pulling my leg?
No, I actually do think about things like that all the time. How'd you get there?
Yeah, because in a boat...
How did you get there?
Oh, very odd, isn't it?
I have to be very self-sufficient.
But we need to plan these sort of trips. It'd be nice. I was looking at planes yesterday, actually, flying overhead and thinking, I just want to go away.
I said to you need to go to Australia. So Stephen watched the Royal Tour, as did we all, didn't we, in Australia. And you hadn't been before.
No.
And I think you need to go. And I said, I'll be very selfless about it. I think you should take 3 weeks annual leave. Sorry, bosses, if you're listening. I think you should take 3 weeks annual leave and go.
OK. Well, that's it. Flying tonight.
I think you should look into it. It'd be amazing. The King has set you an example. He's inspired you.
He has inspired me. Thank you. Right, 17 minutes past 7. Let's have a look at some of the other key stories heading into the newsroom today.
And the government's proposed ban on smoking in pub gardens is set to be reversed following backlash from the public. Instead, smoking is only expected to be prohibited outside hospitals and schools.
Prosecutors in California have recommended the Menendez brothers be resentenced for the murder of their parents in 1989. It would mean Lyle and Eric would be eligible for parole immediately after spending 34 years behind bars. The story recently back in the spotlight following that Netflix series.
Bruce Springsteen has brought some star power to the US election, backing Vice President Kamala Harris at a rally overnight in Georgia.
There is only one candidate in this election who holds those principles dear, Kamala Harris. She's running to be the 47th president of the United States. Donald Trump is running to be an American tyrant.
Well, meanwhile, the Trump campaign took to Arizona and labelled President Biden and Vice President Harris a disgrace to the country as he seeks to court voters in the crucial state.
With your help, 12 days from now, we're going to win Arizona. We're going to defeat Kamala Harris. And we're going to make America great again. That's what we're going to do.
Let's have a look at the weather now with Alex Deacon.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales, dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Well, it's time for the Great British Giveaway now, and it's the final day at last. Hooray! You could be our next big winner. Angela from Wigan won 30 grand in the last giveaway. This is what she had to say.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan, and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I could not believe it. I thought it was a joke. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And yeah, it's given us peace of mind now at night. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter, to do it. It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win, because I don't win anything. This is the first ever prize I've ever won, and it happens to people like me.
Oh, well, Angela won £30,000. You could win £6 grand more than her. Don't tell her, though. £36,000 in tax.
Don't tell her, she's entered this one as well.
Perhaps, well, I would, Angela, if I were you, because we can't enter. We wish we could. Lines close at 5 p.m. today, though, so you'll have to be quick. Here's how.
It's the final day to see how you could win an incredible £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. today. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Good luck indeed. Now, still to come, should Rachel Reeves scrap inheritance tax? We'll be debating that next.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK,
we're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, though.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent? I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Let's have a look at the sport with Paul Coyte. Good morning.
Good morning.
What's happening with the cricket?
How do you think? What's your feeling on
Because
this?
it will be the opposite of whatever you think.
Yeah.
I think we're doing all right.
Not great, but we're doing OK.
Yeah.
It's like the weather. It's kind of cloudy, but could be rainy and sunny.
Have we taken a few wickets?
We've taken one. So 135 for 4, Pakistan, England 267, so
135 for 4. It was 89 for 3 before.
I know, they're putting a few on. But 132 runs behind, but just need to take a few wickets and things could be OK. Second day, but we really need to get a few wickets now before lunch. But anyway, that's what's going on.
Fingers
cricket.
crossed.
Quick word, do we think about... What would you like, Ellie?
I was going to ask about Mourinho.
Yes. He makes himself the story, doesn't he?
He does.
Fenerbahce, he's the manager of Turkey. Manchester United, his old side, one of his old sides. So you knew it was going to be about Mourinho. We played clip of Mourinho yesterday. So what does he do? Gets himself sent off. I'm sure he does it on purpose.
Yeah, really?
I do.
You're not a fan?
Well, am I a fan? I've met him, I've spoken to him, and I was surprised by him. I thought he would be... and he seemed very friendly and very nice. But there's the showbiz in front of everybody, Mourinho, and I think he was complaining about a penalty, which wasn't a penalty. So should we just see how mischievous he is when he was answering questions? This is in the press conference after the game.
You look like you spoke to Onana at half-time. Can you tell us what you said to him? And also...
I cannot tell you because...
OK, and can you appeal against this red card, or would you consider getting in the laundry basket again like at Chelsea?
If I appeal, I will get 6 months ban. So there is nothing to do. Since Sevilla, Roma final, there is nothing to do. It is what it is.
Got himself trouble after the Sevilla-Roma final when he was manager of Roma. That smile, though,
He's very...
It's like, isn't it? You don't know whether he's angry or whether he's laughing or what he's feeling, but he's box office. He's still box office.
Yeah.
So result was 1-1 in the end for Manchester United. They can't seem to keep a lead. Spurs beat AZ Alkmaar of the Netherlands. They beat them 1-0 on a penalty. Rangers won. Chelsea beat Panathinaikos. This is in the Conference League over in Greece. I mean, Chelsea are going to win this competition. There's no doubt in my mind that Chelsea will win the Conference League. Hearts won as well. And also, the other thing in the cricket, which I'm finding quite interesting, is David Warner.
Oh, yeah.
Now, David Warner, former Australian captain.
Yeah.
Now, he was the one... Do you hear about the ball tampering scandal? Now, this is back in 2018. And what happened with that is that being the captain, he said, look, we'll get a little sandpaper on the ball, which is illegal, by the way. Tamper the ball, which then will make it spin, and it'll make it so it'll be better for that. So anyway, he was found out. Big hoo-ha. He was banned from cricket for 12 months, and he was banned from a leadership role for life. So Cricket Australia have decided that lifetime, we'll make it like 4 years. So, or maybe a little longer. So what was it, 2018? So 6 years. So now they've decided to reverse their decision, and he can now captain a side again, which is interesting because they do need a decent opener to play for Australia. So I don't know if that's what's going on. But but anyway, he's now free to captain a team. But that's been changed.
Well, 6 years is long enough, isn't it?
You think so?
I think so.
You're so good, though. That's the thing. You're far too lenient when it comes... It's an Australian tampering with a ball.
He probably just had very rough hands.
Do you reckon that's what it was? Honestly, you should see when he's got wood. He just goes like that with his hand. Just planes it off beautifully. One more thing I have for you. Do you know what? That sounded worse than I wanted it to be. Rumble, good Lord. The rumble in the jungle.
No,
the rumble in the jungle. Now, you know about the rumble in the jungle?
Yeah, Muhammad Ali.
One of the greatest fights in history, Muhammad Ali versus George Foreman, happened in Kinshasa in Zaire. It was 50 years ago this week. And anyway, we're going to be celebrating that. And it was just one of the great fights. Are you familiar with the phrase, I'm going to try and get myself out there?
Is this the old sting like a...
Yeah, float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Sting like a bee, but the phrase is rope-a-dope. Are you familiar with rope-a-dope?
No.
Now, this is what Muhammad Ali did on that day, was rope-a-dope. So you've got George Foreman coming after him, and you're thinking, why is Ali not fighting back? He's just against the ropes. So what he did was took the punishment, left it till the 8th round, and then that's when he stung like a bee. That's the rope-a-dope. Anyway.
Thanks, Goichi.
You keep your rough hands to yourself.
Yeah,
we'll move on from there. And...
if that doesn't end up on It'll Be All Right in the Night, nothing will. Lovely. Thank you very much indeed for your
carpentry tips.
Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think on most things. Every day, we're going to be running our poll of the day, and we're asking today, is Labour declared a class war of Middle Britain? We're bringing you the results throughout the day, so stay tuned.
Yes, the final result will be announced later in Martin Daubney's show. So for all the latest polls, news and results, you can just head to gbnews.com/poll.
Right, we're going to take a short break. We're back talking... we've got papers coming up, and we're also talking inheritance tax in just a minute.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Northumberland, the A697 is closed each way between Thrunton and Edlingham after a lorry overturned with a chemical spill. On the M62 in West Yorkshire, 2 lanes are closed eastbound where a vehicle caught fire between junctions 31 and 32 from Castleford to Pontefract, causing queues. In Powys, the A470 remains closed each way between Glentoyman and Carno for an investigation. Buses replacing trains again today between Shrewsbury and Cunliffe. Train services are suspended between East Midlands Parkway and both Leicester and Peterborough because of a signalling problem. In Oxfordshire on the A34, there's a lane closed southbound for repairs after an accident between Killington and the Pear Tree interchange at Oxford, causing queues. On the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed clockwise at junction 5 for the M26 where someone has a puncture. There are 2 miles of queues towards there. And in East Sussex, the A259 is closed along New Road in Rye where overnight roadworks have overrun.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Jubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together and what have we got, in my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home? Talking about? Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy. Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
It's Patrick Christie's Tonight, and here we do things differently.
It's explaining the absolute madness of this, doesn't it?
It's explosive.
I mean, this is very good.
It's lively.
850. Your government sat there, Sean, and it did nothing.
It's controversial.
And the Middle East has been in turmoil since before I was born.
It's everything you need to kickstart your evening.
Everyone's had their Weetabix tonight. I love to see it.
That's Patrick Christie's Tonight, weeknights from 9 p.m. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back. It's 7:36. Now, with the budget only 5 days away, there have been rumblings that the Chancellor is going to make changes to inheritance tax.
Yes, well, cross-parliamentary MPs have urged the Chancellor to impose a 2% tax on wealth above £10 million. They think it's going to raise £24 billion every year.
But is this fair? And should Number 10 scrap inheritance tax altogether? That's our big question this morning.
Well, we're joined by political commentator Suzanne Evans and political consultant Emma Burnell. Good to see you both this morning. Emma Burnell, it's fair to say, isn't it, that people view this as a really unfair tax, and perhaps now isn't the time to actually scrap it, but hiking it is not going to go down very well.
Well, I'm not sure why people would view it as an unfair tax, given that it's probably one of the fairest ways of taxing that we have. It's a bunch of free money given to people, usually in their mid-50s. We always focus on the person whose estate is being taxed, but they have passed, sadly. They don't care anymore, let's be honest. They're either in heaven, whatever, or they're nowhere at all, whatever you believe. It is money that is given free of charge to their children. The way that our demographics work, that means that we're not talking about 20-year-olds starting their lives out. We're talking about people in their mid to late 50s now, on average. And we have to tax some things in order to pay for the services we all need, like the NHS. We have an education system in crisis. We're hearing about the horrible crisis in SEND at the moment. We have an insecure world. We're talking about needing to raise GDP levels of defence spending. I would ask anyone saying that this is the most unfair tax, what would you tax instead?
Suzanne, what do you make of that?
I'm really quite shocked that Emma doesn't seem to understand the damage that this tax does whatsoever. We're not talking here about wealthy people who don't care where their money goes. We're talking about the impact on family businesses, for example. So you've built up a family over your lifetime, perhaps over your grandparents' lifetime as well. They were involved, and you can't effectively pass it on to your children without absolutely a massive hit to that business. It is a very unfair tax. Let's be very clear. It brings in not terribly much to the Treasury. It brings in only about £6 billion a year. And that's because the very wealthy know how to avoid it. The tax burden falls very much here on the middle classes, people who've got a family home that's worth just over the threshold of 350,000 that they can't then leave to their children potentially. It's really is grotesquely unfair. It's also the most unpopular tax. So the Chancellor could make herself very popular indeed by scrapping it, which I have to say, sadly, I don't think she's going to do for a minute. The other thing, of course, it's for very often younger people. Again, Emma seems to think it only affects middle-aged people. That's not true. For younger people, the thought of inheriting their family home is the one hope that they actually have of getting on the property ladder, which is why, when I was writing the 2015 manifesto for UKIP, it was actually our most popular policy among young people, because they knew that was their only hope, given spiralling house prices, of getting on the housing ladder.
Okay.
Scrapping it would have given them that opportunity.
Emma?
I'm sure that young people would like to get on the property ladder. There are a million better ways to make sure that we do that. One of them is to build many, many more houses, make sure that we're having a really decent mix of housing. But frankly, we know that as a society, we do have taxation. Now, where that taxation comes from are political choices, and whether that taxation comes from working people, from our income, whether that taxation comes from money that is given free to people who have not done anything. It's not. I didn't earn any of my parents' money. My parents earn their money. If when they pass, sadly they will do one day. Thankfully, they haven't yet. That money is not anything I've done to earn. So I think it's only fair that I give some of that back to society to build the roads and the hospitals and the schools that we need.
Suzanne, is it fair that we give it back to society?
Okay, Emma, this is what you do. The rest of us who actually would quite like to benefit from our parents' efforts, and as a parent myself, I would very much hope that my daughter will benefit from my efforts when I die. I'd really like that to happen. But perhaps we could scrap inheritance tax, and then, Emma, when your parents die and they leave you money, just write a cheque to the Treasury. That's all you have to do. If you care that much about public services, you don't have to stick to what the law says on tax. In this respect, you can actually write a cheque and give all the money away. But that should be your choice. It shouldn't be something that's foisted upon us. It's a communist tax, this, let's be honest. You have bought something out of your taxed income, and basically the state is saying, well, I'll have that back, thank you very much, and I'll give it to people who I think are more deserving, whether they actually are or not. And we all know how much waste there is in the public sector, how much waste there is in the NHS, how money is wasted on absolutely non-essential jobs and just squandered away in bad procurement and all the rest of it. I could go on forever about that. This is a communist tax. It takes wealth off people who've earned wealth, and of course who've already paid tax on the money that they use to buy whatever it is that they want to buy. It's a ubiquitous tax. It really should be scrapped.
All right.
It's a complete break on risk, on entrepreneurship, on investment, everything. The wealthiest people move overseas to avoid it.
All right, Suzanne, final word to Emma on that one. Clearly you're not agreeing with anything Suzanne says.
Communist tax is quite frankly one of the stupidest and Trumpiest things I've heard on this channel for a long time. Frankly, there is a tax system in this country. We have to choose where we take the money from. The idea of double taxation is a complete non sequitur. It's a nonsense. I went and bought a kettle yesterday. I paid VAT on that kettle. I bought it with the wages that I'd earned that were also taxed. Most things, we have different taxes in this country. If we had one single taxation, it's the only way that we'd have zero, we wouldn't be double taxed. And if you had a single level of taxation, that would actually be communist.
OK, well, there we must leave it. and agree to disagree. Suzanne Evans, Emma Burnell, thanks both very much indeed.
Well, let us know what you think on that one, gbnews.com/yoursay.
Now, tonight, 9 o'clock on GB News, Patrick Christie's has a winter fuel allowance special. He's been raising funds for Friends of the Elderly. Already £250,000 in the pot. It's a huge amount. He's going to be live in County Durham with locals and pensioners joining him throughout the show.
Now, still to come, the French stick it to the Brits again. Oh, it's intriguing. Find out how in just a minute.
I'm Emily Carver. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop stars to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
There's a huge financial and mental strain for parents, but we have this system now where it talks about they bringing a family member to help, but I don't think that's happening a lot of the time. I think people are having to be off work, look after their child, and often, sorry to say, but their school always calls the mum, and then you have this situation where you have nobody to look after your child. People's grandparents don't seem to want to do it so much, and often family members aren't just down the road. So what we have is no village. And I think it's really important when you have a child that you need that village.
Are children getting more sicker than they used to be? Or is it just that we take the odd sniffle a bit more seriously now since 2020?
Yes, I do think the odd sniffle can be. I know in my school they say 3 days away, you know, the slightest little thing, and it's like...
If you have a cold?
Yeah, no, please, go in, yeah.
And 3 days off if you have a cold for a child, and we wonder why all these parents aren't at work. I think some of these figures about people who could be working and aren't working, they're not necessarily on benefits, but some of them will be people who, during the pandemic, particularly parents, decided to get a different work-life balance. They quite liked being at home, and they realised the children were benefiting from it. Do you think those people are in these statistics, Annette?
Of people staying at home with not working?
Who decided to not go back to work of working age?
Yes, I think a lot of people don't want to go into an office anymore either. They've had that little bit of freedom and they're like, I'm not going in. And I know employers are trying to get them to go in, but they just want to be at home. They want to be near their children if their children are sick, whether that's the mum or the dad. And also a lot of people don't live near their office or wherever. They don't want to commute. Train fares have gone up, so they say, well, why should I pay? So you have this whole knock-on effect throughout the economy.
GB News, the People's Channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens.
With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK.
We're ready to keep you up to date with what's happening every half an hour, every single day. Bulletins here on GB News,
the People's Channel,
Britain's news channel. I'm Tom Harwood. This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight
and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Just going to point out that gbnews.com/yoursay has gone wild after that debate, and you're not a fan of what Emma Burnell had to say. That comes as no great surprise, got to be honest. But, you know, she's sticking to what she believes in.
Yeah.
But anyway, you're not a fan of the idea of inheritance tax being perfectly reasonable.
Well, keep those views coming in. gbnews.com/yoursay.
Right, let's see what's in the papers with Candice Holdsworth and Andy Williams. Good morning to you, Andy. Let's start with the FT, should we? When we go to the doctor and to the hospital and things, obviously our results and what have you have to be discussed between medical staff. But they're being discussed via WhatsApp, it's claimed.
Yeah, and in some cases, very sensitive patient data, test results, the images of X-rays are being shared in real time on WhatsApp. And I think this is it's really concerning, firstly, that such sensitive, very, very, the most personal information we can hold on anybody is just being... I know that WhatsApp is encrypted, but nonetheless, it could go anywhere. You could forward it on to another group or... You know, I think it says something really interesting about how pervasive WhatsApp has become in society in general. We use it for everything. We use it for work. We use it to manage our personal lives, organise things. I saw that Tom Parker Bowles was saying in an interview yesterday that he can't get in touch with his mother, the Queen, because she doesn't use WhatsApp. She doesn't take his calls because she's too busy. And she can't stay updated on the WhatsApp group because she doesn't have it. And we've had government by WhatsApp, particularly during COVID, where billion-pound decisions were being made by Matt Hancock and Boris Johnson, decisions about lockdown on WhatsApp. So it really seems to be governing our lives, and it's not safe for really sensitive information.
No.
Why are they doing this? And from what I know, from what I've spoken to doctors and nurses about, is they like to share information quite quickly. And it is quite a good thing you can do if you can bring up the patient's information just almost instantaneously. And I actually know someone in another country who actually invented a type of technology using iPads where doctors can share that information. So, I mean, if that's what they need to do, then maybe we should look at ways of using technology that they can share that very quickly on safer platforms. Like you say, respect privacy.
We are moving towards a system where I think we're in the process of moving towards a sort of a single NHS data source where all of your patient information will be in one place. It's crazy that we don't have that already, but that hopefully will help at least.
And it is a good thing. That's one thing the NHS is very good for, where it's a sort of centralised system, whereas I know in other countries it's a lot more fragmented. So if you have to see multiple specialists for a different problem, sometimes communication between the different specialists can be an issue.
Right.
Candice, should we have a look at the Times? And cheaper reusable vapes may get around that single-use ban.
Yeah, so apparently legislation has been brought forward that will look at banning single-use vapes by June 2025, mostly for environmental reasons, though I know that they're also looking at trying to discourage children from using them because they tend to use the single-use vapes. It's an interesting thing. I don't know if it's so much like the smoking ban, where people will be saying, we shouldn't be interfering in the free market, let people choose what they want to use. This is sort of nanny statism, basically.
Yeah, I don't think it's... I have to say, I don't think it's nanny statism when you look at the millions upon millions upon millions of discarded vapes, which are plastic. So it's not banning vapes, you just have to buy one that you have to charge and fill.
Exactly, they're littered everywhere, aren't they? You see them on the streets the whole time. Those brightly coloured little piece of plastic just sort of scattered in.
And they are the most accessible, aren't they? I mean, we've all seen it in corner shops. You go in and they're brightly coloured, they smell lovely, they're cheap, and it's people who don't...
Well, they're not cheap. They're not cheap.
Not
They're
cheap?
much more expensive to use a single use than it is to buy
I don't even
a
know
refillable.
how much does a vape cost, like a single-use vape. I've no idea.
£6. But that is cheap. Somebody who doesn't vape, who might be on a night out, nips into a corner shop and sees it as a bit of a treat. It's very accessible.
Yes, that's the thing. That's sort of the things I think about as well. I mean, I don't have an ideological view on it, but I also do worry that sometimes people problematise vape. They make vape seem a lot worse than they are, so they sort of equate them with smoking, and it's different. They're not the same.
No, they're not the same.
I just feel sorry for my friend Georgie, who pretty much lives on Proud Marys.
Georgie's going to have to get herself a chargeable vape.
Get a chargeable one, and she'll save loads of money.
I'll let her know.
I mean, that's the thing. So I don't have an issue with that particularly. I've got to say, I do have an issue with this, Andy, in the Express this morning.
Oh yeah,
a scam of people basically selling fake poppies.
This is just so as scams go. This is like as low as it gets.
Oh
really.
yeah.
To be making money out of the poppy appeal by selling counterfeit poppies and other sort of Remembrance Day related items. I think it's not only on the scammers, it's also on people need to be thoughtful about where they're buying things from and making sure that it's legit. You know, if you're going to buy a poppy, don't buy it off eBay.
No.
Just go to a proper seller.
Go to a proper seller,
anywhere,
or if you're
outside any train station, anywhere.
If you're doing your online shopping for it all, britishlegion.org.uk. And because it's a Royal British Legion thing, and if you're going to buy anything, buy it from the Royal British Legion.
Yeah.
And then you know where the money is going.
Make sure it's going to the right place.
Yeah, £150,000 worth of merchandise seized at the border. It's a huge amount.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Absolutely
Lowest
crazy.
below, it really is. Candice, let's have a look at this, shall we? This is the Menendez brothers.
Yeah.
Have you seen the show?
In The Guardian.
Yes, I have. So I know all about this story. This is crazy. So they were the two brothers who, in the 1990s, were convicted for murdering their parents. And I mean, it was looked at like the ultimate nightmare, the ultimate evil. These two boys who had just cold-bloodedly killed their parents for inheritance. But now there's a sort of twist in the tale because new evidence supposedly made in their defence says that they actually did it because they were being physically and sexually abused by the father, allegedly, and they did it out of self-defence. And I do know that this is something that is accepted in criminal justice trials now, that sort of defence, because I know there have been women who've been acquitted for physically attacking their abusers.
Yeah, no, it's an interesting one. We'll see how this one
It's one
plays
to watch,
out.
isn't it?
Thanks both. See you later.
Let's have a look at the weather.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales, dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. In Northumberland, the A697 is closed each way between Thrunton and Edlingham after a lorry overturned and left a chemical spill. In Powys, the A470 remains closed each way between Glantymen and Carno for an investigation. Buses replaced trains again today between Shrewsbury and Machynlleth. Train services are suspended between East Midlands Parkway and both Leicester and Peterborough because of a signalling problem. In Oxfordshire, on the A34, there's a lane closed southbound for repairs after an accident between Killington and the Pear Tree interchange at Oxford, causing queues. On the M4 in London, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down just before junction 1 for the Chiswick roundabout, with queues almost back to junction 3 near Heston. On the M25 in Kent, there's a lane closed clockwise at junction 5 for the M26 where someone has a puncture, with queues from junction 3 for the M20. In East Sussex, the A259 is closed each way along New Road in Rye where overnight roadworks have overrun.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway, and you really could be next.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And if I can win, anyone can win.
For another chance to win £36,000 in tax-free cash, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690 Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. this Friday. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Every Saturday, 10 till 12, we'll bring you all of the news that you need to know. We'll also remind you that there is so much to smile about.
It's my favourite time of the week. I get to relax, enjoy some light-hearted stories, and let Ellie teach me about fashion too.
That's Saturday Morning Live, every Saturday, 10 till 12.
Only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
If you want your news to be straight talking,
this is a nightmare for the Conservatives again.
Down to earth.
It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it?
And most importantly, honest.
Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them.
Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. The Prime Minister paves the way for tax rises.
Sir Keir Starmer declares people with assets do not fit into his definition of working people, paving the way for possible tax hikes.
Well, that's as the Chancellor is warned a £50 billion borrowing spree, which she's apparently planning, could raise interest rates.
Up in smoke, the government U-turn on their decision to ban smoking from pub gardens following heavy backlash.
The King delivers a landmark speech in Samoa, urging world leaders to right inequalities that endure.
It seems to me that these connections between us are more precious than ever. Together we are wiser, stronger, and more able to respond to the...
I'm live from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, bringing you the latest analysis from the King's speech, and while he is focused on the future rather than the past.
Inheritance tax warning as the government looks to increase the amount of money it raises from the tax. We've been debating this morning whether it's time to get rid of it completely.
And could the next royal wedding be yours? Plans are floated to possibly allow weddings on the Balmoral estate, but do you think that's a good idea?
And in the sport this morning, Jose Mourinho, the special one, gets himself sent off. There's his Fenerbahce team draw with Manchester United last night. Also in Europe, Spurs, Rangers, Chelsea and Hearts of Midlothian all win. And in cricket, England are making breakthroughs in the third test against Pakistan.
A real mishmash of weather today. Pretty dull for some, bright for others. Bit of heavy rain and some gusty winds. Find out who gets what. Join me later for the weather.
It's just gone 8 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
You see, this is where I go wrong with Paul Coyte. This is how I do my sport, you see, and I'll go, so when it gets to the sport, I'll say to Paul, cricket, Paul, it's all going quite well for England.
Yes.
And he'll go, oh, no, not anymore.
No. Yeah, and then you'll go, so here it's not going so well. Well, funny you should say that, because it is going better. But it's going OK. It's going OK, because it's going on at the moment in Rawalpindi in Pakistan. England are level, 1 each. So this is the decider. Second day. Trust me, I will keep you updated on what's going on.
OK, lovely stuff.
Thank you very much.
Now, the Chancellor is going to rewrite the government's Are we not going to? Are we getting very confused? Right, we are on the right story. Good. We're going to talk to Cameron Walker about the royal stuff a little bit later on. Now, the Chancellor is set to rewrite the government's debt and taxation rules in the budget next week, apparently, unleashing a borrowing spree of up to £50 billion.
However, investors have warned that interest rates will remain high, with families expected to be hit with even higher mortgages.
Heck. Now, there are also concerns that the Prime Minister may break that pre-election promise, remember it, that we're not going to raise any of the key 3 taxes on working people. I mean, income tax was the key one on that one, of course. But it was about who are working people. Well, he's come up with a definition now that it's anyone who doesn't own assets or shares.
Well, speaking to Chopper's political podcast, former Conservative Chancellor Lord Lamont has slammed the Prime Minister's use of the term.
I dislike this phrase, working people, not just because of its ambiguity, but I think it's deliberately designed to imply working class, which I think is an out-of-date idea, and it's appealing to old-fashioned Labour mythology. And I think it's a very unpleasant term to talk about working people. Why is a pensioner not a working person? They've worked all their life. It's ridiculous.
Let's speak now to GB News' political correspondent, Catherine Forster. Very good morning to you, Catherine. And so much of this nervousness surrounding the budget next week is this definition of what is a working person.
Yes, indeed. And I think it was deliberately vague during the general election campaign because Labour kept saying no tax rises on working people, no tax rises on income tax, VAT and national insurance. But of course, many people would say that there's millions of working people who pay other taxes that might be going up in the budget, whether that be capital gains tax, inheritance tax, fuel duty, which could rise, and of course the thresholds, because we've already seen those tax bracket thresholds frozen by the previous government through till 2028. It sounds like that freeze could be extended now. Really, that is effectively a rise because more and more people will be dragged into paying those higher rates. So I think it was deliberately ambiguous, but my goodness, it feels like a long time, doesn't it, since Labour was saying no tax rises planned beyond that which we've already announced on non-DOMs, on VAT, on private school fees, because it does sound like there's going to be lots and lots of tax rises coming in next week's budget. We know that the government are massively strapped for cash. We know they're looking to fill this £22 billion black hole. In fact, looks like they're looking to raise about £40 billion through tax rises and some spending cuts. So that's for day-to-day spending. And then on the other hand, it looks like the Chancellor is going to tweak her fiscal rules which she adopted from the previous government because she didn't want to startle the horses. They do not want under any circumstances a repeat of what happened with that mini budget under Liz Truss where the markets took fright. But it sounds like they're tweaking those fiscal rules to allow them to borrow a whole load of extra money, up to 50 billion, perhaps 20 billion in the first year. That is not for day-to-day spending, though. That is for big long-term projects, infrastructure, things like that, that the government feels are essential to getting growth. They still say, of course, that growth is their number one mission. We haven't had a lot of it in this country, frankly, since the financial crisis. Of course, saying you're going to get growth and growth actually happening, two very different things.
Catherine Forster there for us in Westminster. Thank you very much indeed.
Now, the King told world leaders that the past cannot be changed in an address to the Commonwealth Summit in Samoa amid growing calls for slavery reparations.
Well, joining us live from Samoa is our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. Good evening to you, Cameron, in Samoa.
Good evening, Ellie, and I'm actually going to bring you, I believe, live pictures of His Majesty the King and Queen arriving at the official dinner and reception for the Commonwealth heads of government. It is the King hosting this particular dinner at the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum. Of course, the author from the Victorian times, famous for writing novels such as Treasure Island. I was actually with the King earlier today at that very same museum, where he was dressed in a suit rather than the short sleeve shirt that you're watching him in now. He was opening a new botanical garden, the King's Garden as it's been renamed, in honour of him, and he was planting a tree. But of course, this is all about his power of soft diplomacy, talking to the 56 independent heads of government. We believe Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister, is there. I suspect Foreign Secretary David Lammy is also there as well, because he was with the King with me earlier on today. If we do have any outfit details of the King or Queen, I will bring those to you. I am expecting that information through shortly. The blue trim on the King's jacket was designed, I believe, by the Samoan School of Art. So any more outfit or dinner-related details, I'll bring that to you. But earlier on today, the King, it was a very important day for the King, because he was delivering his first landmark speech as the head of the Commonwealth, and he started off really by talking about the legacy his late mother left. Of course, she was head of the Commonwealth for a majority, in fact all of her reign, and before that, in the pioneering stages, it was King George VI, his grandfather, and he paid tribute to them both. So take a listen.
The Commonwealth mattered a great deal to my dear mother, the late Queen. Her commitment to you all, as that of my grandfather, King George VI, before her, is one which has helped to shape my own life for as long as I can remember.
Also, there was an elephant in the room, because increasingly this week there has been more and more noise over whether or not Britain and other countries should pay countries affected by slavery or colonisation reparations. Now, both the British government ministers, but Prime Minister specifically, and the Chancellor of the Exchequer, Rachel Reeves, have all ruled out that Britain will be paying any reparations to these countries. And King Charles clearly is a constitutional monarch. He is politically neutral. He doesn't get involved in political discussions, but he does take advice from ministers, and he did acknowledge the past in his speech. So take a listen to what he said.
Our cohesion requires that we acknowledge where we have come from. I understand from listening to people across the Commonwealth how the most painful aspects of our past continue to resonate. It is vital, therefore, that we understand our history to guide us to make the right choices in the future.
Now, if you notice there, he stopped short of offering any kind of formal apology, and he certainly didn't mention slavery or reparations in his speech. But of course, that is something that would be the British government's decision, whether or not the head of state, as in the King, should say something like that. But he did talk about also the threats that we collectively face, the 56 independent nations, including Great Britain. Climate change, of course, a huge passion of King Charles's. He was talking about that, but he was also talking about the fact that we are stronger together, particularly in the face of an uncertain world with the global conflict. War in Ukraine, wars in the Middle East, or conflicts in the Middle East. But to end on a lighter note, I'm not sure if we can bring you those live pictures of the King and Queen again, but I do have outfit details for you if you are interested of Her Majesty the Queen. She is wearing a blue embroidered tunic top, blue palazzo trousers by Anna Valentine. She's certainly been wearing a lot of Anna Valentine the last couple of days in Samoa, and she has diamond earrings. No specific details on the diamond earrings. She has been known to wear jewellery last worn by either Queen Elizabeth II or Queen Elizabeth the Queen Mother, but I do not have those details for you. But a little bit of an happier note to end it on.
Look, very nice indeed, and hopefully they'll have a lovely evening. Good to see you, Cameron. Thanks very much indeed. I really like that look he's got with the
short-sleeved.
Yeah, but the traditional
Samoan print
stuff on.
Yeah.
I don't know if it's a print.
Yeah, it's a print. I think edging. It's
edging, but it had a belt made out of it as well yesterday, and I think that's a really nice touch.
Yeah, I think it's nice as well. Looks very warm in Samoa, doesn't it? Tropical.
Looks lovely. It was raining earlier on.
Yeah, it's tropical.
But well, yeah, that would be it. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not going to be tropical here, though, I don't think. Alex Deacon's got all the details for us.
Heavy showers first thing will be followed by a warm, cosy day. Boxed boilers. Sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales, dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
Even though we'll see a cloudy start, it'll be a bright outlook for the rest of the day. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
It's 8:14, so let's tell you about the Great British Giveaway, because today is the very last day to see how you could be our next big winner. Angela from Wigan won £30,000 in our last giveaway, and this is what she said about winning with us.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan, and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I could not believe it. I thought it was a joke. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And yeah, it's given us peace of mind now at night. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter, to do it. It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win, because I don't win anything. This is the first ever prize I've ever won, and it happens to people like me.
Fantastic.
Yeah, well, Angela won £30,000. You could win £36,000 in tax-free cash. Lines close at 5 p.m. today, though, so you do have to be quick. Here are all the details that you need.
It's the final day to see how you could win an incredible £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message, or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2, or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. today. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Still to come, we're going to be talking to the government, to the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Lots to ask him ahead of the budget on Wednesday.
Headliners. Tomorrow's papers tonight, every night from 11 p.m.
The Daily Mail now, Josh, and pub landlords have to worry about more than the optics when it comes to offensive banter,
Yeah,
it
this
seems.
is a really big story and important. Pub landlords could have to become banter cops to stop themselves being sued by staff offended by comments from customers under workers' rights reform. So, Labour, when they were part of their election process, they were like, we're going to reform workers' rights, and that all sounds good on paper, but there were issues in terms of, how might it affect employees and fear from employees costing them more money. One of these things that they're sort of pushing through, though, is that in the Equality Act of 2010, part of the issue was that if you were offended at work or someone said something sexist or racist, something that affected you, the employer had to take some sort of, they had three chances to kind of take action.
Yeah.
Now, the employer should have taken action already. So employees can sue employers. Now, this has a big impact on us because we're comics and we perform in venues. And if some of the bar staff hear a joke that they don't like, then they can sue their employer, potentially, under this legislation.
So it's not punters?
Well, also, it could be like you're at a bar and some bloke is like, oh, I like that top, or whatever. That's not good behaviour. But the point is now that employee could sue their employer.
So, because, I mean, the sort of scenario I was imagining was that a barmaid was being maybe sexually harassed or
That's
something.
That's what they're focusing in this article, but other articles have gone down the free speech route. Okay. And also venues and universities having lectures. We saw it at, in Edinburgh Fringe Festival and Sadowitz. He had a show cancelled not because of any punters, but because two of the 18-year-olds were working. They were upset by his
There was
wedding.
a bar in Brighton, wasn't there? There was a story we covered a few weeks ago. A bar in Brighton threw some people out because...
exactly. They had turfs on the...
turfs. Yeah.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Why go out on a Friday night when Friday night comes straight to your home?
Talking about?
Join me and my A-team of top pundits. Chemistry tonight is electric. As we tackle the big stories of the day with wit, insight and fearless energy.
Man of the people.
It's all vibe.
Just a filing cabinet on wheels with a tie on.
So, order in Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, every Friday at 8, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Right, it's 8:20 exactly. Let's get the take on the government, should we? Especially in the run-up to the budget next week, which we're all dreading, frankly, because we were told to by the Prime Minister. So let's talk to the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Good to see you this morning. Thank you for your time. Look, in terms of the budget, one of the key things is where we get more money from, which taxes are going to be raised. Amidst all of this, the Prime Minister seems to have changed his mind as to who would be exempt from taxes as a working Brit. So what is a working Brit now?
Well, I think what the Prime Minister has made very clear on, and we've all been very clear on, is that working people are people who go out to work, and that's how they earn their income. And what we said in our manifesto, and it's a commitment that we're keeping in government, is to protect working people through not increasing the rates of income tax, national insurance and VAT. Now, you said it's going to be a difficult budget. It is going to be a difficult budget with difficult decisions when it comes to taxation, welfare and spending. But I want to be really clear that the reason why we need to make those difficult decisions now is to get the public finances back on a firm footing so that we can get investment up and pursue that prize of growth, because growth is the way that we make people across the country better off.
Are Labour declaring a class war on the middle class? Lord Lamont has been speaking to GB News on Chopper's podcast, the former Tory Chancellor of the 90s. He's suggesting exactly that. You know, during the run-up to the election, the Labour Party spoke about wanting to help working people, not raising their taxes. But this very narrow definition now of what a working Brit is. You only want to help the working class, don't you? Not working people.
Well, no, I think the definition of working people is a wide one. It's people who go out to work, and that's how they earn their income. But I think what we're very clear on is that we want to protect working people by not increasing the rates of income tax, national insurance and VAT. And you've got to remember the reason why we made that commitment going into the last election. And the reason why is because we'd had 14 years of the Conservatives where people had really felt the squeeze. And that's why that commitment in the manifesto earlier this year was so important. And that's why it's so important for us now in government that, notwithstanding the fact that there are going to be difficult decisions when it comes to taxation, welfare and spending, we are standing by our commitment to protecting working people.
Well, I mean, everyone who's got a job goes out to earn money, don't they? The Prime Minister said in an interview yesterday that he considered working people to be those who are waiting on a cheque at the end of the month, but find it very difficult to write a cheque if the need arises. Well, that is a very narrow view.
Well, I think what the Prime Minister was making clear is that the definition of working people is a wide one, but he was talking about who he has in mind when he's making decisions, because there are difficult decisions to be made, as we've been really upfront about, and who has he got in mind, who has the Chancellor got in mind when taking those difficult decisions. And that's why he described people who are working hard, maybe able to save a bit, but haven't got huge savings to get them through if things start going badly wrong. That's the kind of person who he has in mind when taking decisions.
Within all of this, I mean, we know, or at least we've been led to believe that one of the things the Chancellor will do is extend the freeze on the tax threshold, which only, 18 months ago she said was a stealth tax on working people. And now she's going to implement it in the budget.
Well, this is all speculation about the budget. The budget's next Wednesday. You haven't got long to wait, and you'll see when the budget comes out, the Chancellor will set out the full package when it comes to taxation, welfare, spending, the economy. I can't comment on anything ahead of that.
Well, what isn't speculation is that Rachel Reeves is going to change the fiscal rules to allow her to borrow up to £50 billion more. She has confirmed that on her trip to Washington, D.C. That is going to instill a lot of nervousness, not only in the British public, not only those with mortgages, because there are fears now that the interest rates are going to remain high, but also fear in the markets as well. What are you going to do to quell those fears?
Well, I think what markets will see at the budget next week are measures taken by the Chancellor which will instill confidence in them, because they will see a Chancellor who has her first fiscal rule, the stability rule, which is about making sure that day-to-day spending is fully paid for through tax receipts. So that means no borrowing for day-to-day spending. They will also see the fact a second fiscal rule, the investment rule, will get debt falling as a proportion of GDP. And they'll see the fact that she's setting out guardrails around what investments we make. Guardrails where the National Audit Office, the Office of Budget Responsibility, make sure that the investments are good value for money and deliver a return for the taxpayer. And I think when the markets look at that package, they will see the strength of it, they will get confident looking at that. And I think what they will see is it's the right package to have public investment, to draw in more private investment and to get the economy growing.
Yeah, but they're not confident yet. I mean, they're going to be aware of all that you've just said, and yet they're not confident now, are they? The 10-year gilt yield, which doesn't mean a lot to most of us, it rose to 4.26% yesterday. Now, that means that there is a perceived higher risk. They don't want to lend to government. It would cost more money. It means investors are nervous.
Well, what the point of the fiscal rules is to make sure that people can have certainty that we're bringing stability back into the economy. And that's why the stability rule is the critical one. It's the first one, it's the one that bites hardest. And it's a big change from the previous government, because we're saying that we want day-to-day spending to be paid for through tax receipts entirely. That means no borrowing for day-to-day spending. Now, that's a different rule than the previous government. It's a tough rule. It's one that will mean tough decisions at the budget, but it's one that we believe is essential to give the general public and the markets confidence about our approach. Now, alongside that, the IMF and a number of notable economists have also said, look, Britain needs to invest more to grow. And we know that public investment plays a role in that. And that's why the investment rule, the second fiscal rule, gets debt falling as a proportion of GDP, but also values investment and points to public investment as playing a really important role, not least in drawing in far more private investment to get the economy growing.
OK, Minister. Really good to talk to you. Appreciate it. Thanks very much indeed.
Thanks very much.
Thank you. Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think. So every day we're going to be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking, has Labour declared a class war on Middle Britain? We'll be bringing you the live results throughout the day, so make sure you stay tuned.
Yeah, so a lot of it's going to depend on what we actually do get in that budget. We'll have the final result for you in Martin Daubney's show later on today. And if you want to take part, learn how to vote and have a look at previous polls as well, go to gbnews.com/poll. Fascinating talking to the Minister there. That sort of thing. You know, you've got to want him to be right.
Well, you hope he is.
For the sake of Britain as an economy. And he talked again about the importance of economic growth, which is really important for the country. It's difficult to see how that's coming about, though,
I know.
at the moment, when it seems particularly SMEs, small and medium-sized businesses, are being pretty heavily targeted, which... And they're the sort of the roots of our economic growth in this country. So it is difficult, isn't it?
Yeah, and I do think that people are nervous because this definition of working people, which was very, very vague during the general election campaign, is now getting narrower and narrower. Now we're talking about people who are essentially living paycheck to paycheck.
I mean, what you can't do, unfortunately, in an interview like that, because we are limited for time, is things like when you said, well, this whole business about Rachel Reeves saying freezing tax thresholds, last year, she said, was a stealth tax on working people. And he said, well, you've got to wait and see. It hasn't been announced yet. You've got to wait till the budget. Well, does that mean then, by that admission, that if it is announced in the budget, that is then a tax on working people? I mean, it's semantics in a way, but it wasn't giving anything away with that.
Yeah, I mean, she's denounced getting rid of winter fuel allowance before, hasn't she? And then look at what's happened. So it's a tricky one.
Unless you just say, well, we're in government now and it's tough. You know, it's really hard work.
Difficult decisions have to be made, and that's what's being peddled out, isn't it?
Anyway, we shall see. It's going to be quite a day on Wednesday.
Yeah, 5 days to go. Now, do stay with us. Still to come, should the Balmoral estate or any royal residences become wedding venues? Let us know what you think. That's next.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The M74 in South Lanarkshire is partly blocked northbound by an accident between junctions 2 and 1A from Rutherglen to Polmaddy, causing queues. The A74M in Dumfries and Galloway is partly blocked northbound by an accident between junctions 15 and 14 from Moffat to Crawford, causing queues. In Flintshire, the A55 North Wales Expressway is closed eastbound between junctions 32 and 33 from Holywell to Northop after an accident, with queues towards there. In Oxfordshire on the A34, there's a lane closed southbound for repairs after an accident between Killington and the Pear Tree interchange at Oxford, with queues from the M40. On the M4 west of London, there's a lane closed eastbound where someone's broken down just before junction 1 at Chiswick, with queues from the Heston services. And in East Sussex, the A259 is closed in both directions along New Road in Rye, where overnight roadworks have overrun. And that's the latest.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
I'm Christopher Hope. From pop star to politicians, I'll interview anybody in a pub who's got a political opinion. Join me every Friday on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube or gbnews.com, or wherever you get your podcasts. This is GB News, the People's Channel.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
We're proud to be GB News, the People's Channel. And as you know, we always love to hear your views. Now, there's a new way of getting in touch with us at gbnews.com/yoursay. By commenting, you can be part of a live conversation and join our GB News community. You can even talk to me, Bev Turner, or any of the members of the GB News family.
Mark Dolan tonight is your weekend dose of news, debate and entertainment.
This sounds like a wild conspiracy theory.
Don't miss My Big Opinion, Mark Meets, and My Take at 10.
Democracy is a funny old thing.
And we don't do boring, not on my watch. I just won't have it.
Let's go and get another glass of that bubbly. You've earned it.
That's Mark Dolan tonight, Saturday and Sunday, 9 to 11, only on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Camilla Tominey, for a frank and honest discussion with those in power that cuts through the spin and gets to the heart of the issues shaping our nation.
You haven't confirmed that you want to stand as leader, but you haven't ruled it out either.
This report basically says that he's not fit to stand trial. Is he indecisive? Incompetent?
I deliver the dose of reality Westminster needs. That's the Camilla Tominey Show at 9:30 every Sunday on GB News. The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day, all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Welcome back to Breakfast. Now, if you're engaged or you're thinking about tying the knot, you may want to consider a particularly special venue which could be up for grabs.
Yes. Apparently the King is hoping to convert a building on the Balmoral estate into a wedding venue that could also be used for dinners, meetings and other events.
So this morning we're asking, is and should the Balmoral estate and others become wedding venues?
Yes, and we're joined by royal commentator Richard Fitzwilliam and etiquette expert Diana Mathers. Good to see you both this morning. Diana, it would certainly be a beautiful venue for an event, especially a wedding, but is it the right thing to do?
I don't think so. I think our late Majesty would be horrified. To her, that was a very, very special private place. The only place, really, that she could go and be herself and get away from royal duties. And I think to dumb it down and have weddings, although obviously they're not going to be in Balmoral itself, the house itself. But I do teas at Kensington Palace. I do a lot of teas there, showing people how to eat their scone and stir their tea. But I really think Balmoral should be left as it is, unless it's so expensive to run that they can't afford to do anything else. But I think the Queen would be very upset.
OK, Richard Fitzwilliams, let's bring you in at that point. Do you think Her Late Majesty would be horrified at this as an idea?
Well, I don't think that it would spoil what I would call the cachet of Balmoral. I mean, it's not intended to be in Balmoral Castle. It's the Queen's building is what is being applied for, and I quote, weddings, dinners, meetings and other events. Apparently today they have said that they do not intend at the moment to hold commercial weddings, and indeed, apparently they've had a license for 15 years had they wished to do it. But the idea of opening up the royal palaces, insofar as it's practical, I think is excellent. I mean, you think of the Windsor Fire, which was so terrible, and subsequently Buckingham Palace was opened, and indeed over 500,000 people every year have attended, and that has been a tremendous benefit, for example, to the royal collection. So far as Balmoral is concerned, it does indeed have these wondrous connotations. Queen Victoria and Prince Albert fell in love with it. He bought it famously in 1852, and the late Queen was devoted to it. Prince Charles does tend to prefer Burke Hall, and of course he has several properties there, the Castle of May, Dumfries House and so on. And I do think it's very important the royal family get as much revenue as they possibly can from the different royal residences and estates. And if you look at the most recent accounts, 3.6 billion from rentals, and I think that this will help. So I'm all in favour generally, but of course you want to preserve the dignity of the occasion, and certainly, as I say at the moment, they're not actually planning to have weddings there.
I mean, you've got to ask, haven't you, Diana? Oh no, go on.
Sorry, I was just saying that I think it's very important that the mystique of the royal family is maintained. If they become too, I can go to Balmoral, I can go to Buckingham Palace. They've got to stay a sort of a stage slightly above us or away from us, in order to keep the mystique, which makes us go and see them watch them.
But you know, with reference to mystique, it is tremendously important, of course. But if you take Buckingham Palace, you've got changing the guard, you've got trooping, the colour, of course, involving it. You've got the magnificent banqueting hall and so forth. You've got something that's absolutely unique in the world. But you don't want to give people the impression that they're being kept out. I'd involve people as much as possible. Look at Windsor Castle, tremendous attraction. The Tower of London, well, I mean, in past years, but very, very significant. All of these add to the allure of the monarchy. Holyrood House.
OK. Richard, we're out of time. I'm afraid to jump in, but we are out of time. Richard Fitzwilliam, Diana Mathers, thank you both very much indeed. It's fascinating. I have to say, I don't like the idea of it.
Oh, I do. If you're a monarchist, I think that is your dream wedding venue.
Oh, it would
Imagine.
be. But I just sort of think, I agree with Diana. Bit of mystique.
No.
Like we have with Paul Coyte.
How about for a little bit of extra cash? You could actually have a royal attend the wedding as well. How about that? Maybe you could do something like that.
You wonder if that would be the
King and
next
Queen
step.
can stop by.
I know, that would be nice. You've
for an
got
extra £100 or something.
You know, and you just start at the top and then work the different prices. I think it's a lovely idea.
Yeah. Lovely.
Don't fancy that then? OK.
The cricket, well, we're having a bit of a resurgence, Paul.
No, we're not, I'm afraid. No, yes, we are. Yes, we are. It's looking much better. Pakistan, 182 for 7. We are taking wickets. 4 wickets have already fallen this morning. Rian Ahmed has taken 3. So to cut a very long story short, we are 85 runs behind. We need 3 wickets, but it's often the tail that sticks around a little too long. So we'll see how that goes. But it's looking OK. So it's looking good for England at the moment.
Should we talk about Mourinho?
Yeah, what do you think about Jose? What do you think about Jose Mourinho?
I think...
Are you a fan?
I think he's cocky and I like it.
No.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Yes.
He gets himself into trouble sometimes.
He does, and the thing is, he does it on purpose. I'm sure.
Do you think?
I really do. There's one thing about being passionate, and there's one thing about getting red cards, but there's also another thing about putting yourself at the centre of it, and I'm pretty sure that's what he's done, because we were talking about him yesterday. The fact that he was Manchester United manager and he's Fenerbahce manager now, and they drew 1-1. Anyway, he was caught and he was sent off, so he spoke about it afterwards, and I've got the quote here, as he went looking for the referee afterwards.
Yeah.
So what Jose said was that he told me something incredible. This is he's talking about the referee. He said that he told me that at the same time he could see the action in the box. It wasn't a penalty, by the way. And my reaction, and he could see my reaction on the touchline. He had one eye on the penalty situation, one eye on the bench and my behaviour. That is why he's the best referee in the world. So I don't think he's too serious about that, but he's probably going to end himself getting himself back in trouble. But anyway.
Wow. So yeah. Well, I mean, we're talking about him. We're not talking about Ten Hag, who managed to, a draw, and maybe his job's on the line.
As someone said, there's only one thing worse than being talked about, and that's not being talked about. So Jose Mourinho is happy with that. I think it was Oscar Wilde.
It was Oscar Wilde.
Who played up front for Huddersfield Town, by the way.
Very good.
Back in the 1800s. By the way, quick mention to New Saints, who are a Welsh football club who you may not be aware of. They beat Astana 2-0 from Kazakhstan. They're the first domestic Welsh team to win a major European game, and that's in the Conference League, so well done to them, because they won't get the mentions they deserve, so well done.
Well, we'll mention them here then.
New Saints.
Thank you very much. Goitee.
Yeah, thank you. Right, we're going to take you through the papers in just a couple of minutes.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day, all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's News Channel.
Sunday with Michael Portillo from 11, only on GB News.
Serving some of the most talked about food in Chelsea. executive head chef of Number 50 Cheney, Ian Smith, has created a range of menus with a hint of the homeland, using the finest British ingredients sourced by trusted suppliers. Ian Smith was head chef at Jason Atherton's Social Eating House and spent time in the kitchens of the Galvin brothers. Ian joins me now to tell more of the story. Tell me about Number 50 Cheney.
Yes, so we are a beautiful restaurant down in the corner of Chelsea on the Embankment with an amazing team. And we really pride ourselves on, being an affordable luxury that people, really are wanting to return to week in, week out.
What's the view from your restaurant?
Well, you can see the Embankment, the Thames, and Albert Bridge, which is very nice.
Very
It's actually lit up. Very romantic.
And tell me a little bit about your philosophy. I was talking there about having a touch of the homeland, British food, seasonal food.
Yes. Yeah, I think for me, great cooking is, with simplicity on finest ingredients, cooked with simplicity, and ultimately, there to be enjoyed through... Yeah, sorry.
No, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was going to say, it starts as a young person's business. You went into it very young, didn't you? 15?
Yes. Yeah, so I was 15. I sat in my parents' bedroom, called the Ritz, the Dorchester and Claridge's, and very luckily, a man on the end of the phone, 21 years ago, sent me on to a college course called the Specialised Chef Scholarship. 3 days later, I had a Ritz stamp letter through the post, and off me and my parents went, and luckily I got on the course.
And how old were you when you got your first responsibility, would you say?
I think the biggest responsibility in my career is today. Leading Number 50 Cheney.
GB News, the People's Channel.
Hi there, I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm going to take a second to tell you all about my show, Dubes & Co. We start off with the issues of the day. We then bring in both sides of the arguments. We get rid of the disrespect. And then you throw me into the mix. And trust me, I'll tell it exactly how it is. And then, of course, the magic ingredient, you at home. We mix it all together, and what have we got? In my opinion, the best debate show in town. Monday to Friday, 6 till 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's 8:44. Let's see what's in the papers for you this morning with Candice Holdsworth and Andy Williams. Morning, you two.
Good morning.
Should we kick off with a bit of Olympics, which seems an odd time to be talking about the Olympics, but in the Express, Andy, they're saying Olympic funding is at risk.
Yeah, well, it's more the fact that British athletes are really struggling to maintain their training because they're paid so poorly, or because they receive such little funding. So the average Team GB athlete receives $22,500 a year, which doesn't go that far these days. And so 64% of people who might be competing at the next Olympics in LA are saying that they're going to have to really seriously give that some thought because they don't know whether they'll be able to afford it, basically. Oh. I think the thing to say here is that the reason we have done so well as a country at the Olympics in recent years is because we've invested so much money, we've poured funding into a range of sports, and we've done it on a really meritocratic basis. So sports where we've been successful, like cycling and rowing and swimming and diving, have received a lot more funding than other sports where we've been. So it's a very fair system. But I mean, at the 96 Olympics in Atlanta, Britain got 1 gold medal, which was like a disastrous result. By 2016, we're second in the medal table. So it does show that if you invest in athletes and in facilities, I know that lottery funding has been really important as well. It does make a huge difference.
It's a common theme, isn't it, this idea of investment, that if you invest in things, you'll get the results. What you put in, you get out. And I think this is such an issue when it comes to government funding, because there is this perception that we don't have any money. And I just wonder if maybe they need to look at things in the private sector. Problem is, we do have quite a conservative investment culture in this country. So funding things like sports, when they can't see an obvious reward for it and a monetary reward for it, maybe you need to look at things like branding. I don't know.
No, well, it is a reward. I mean, I have to say, I'm all for us doing well at the Olympics. It's great, national pride, all the rest of it. However, at the moment, would I be making an argument to put more funding into sport? But
it's a drop in the ocean, though, isn't it, really? I mean, I don't know exactly what the numbers are in terms of how much we're spending on sport, but in the scheme of things, when we're pouring billions into defence, into NHS, it really is nothing. I mean, we're spending 1.1 trillion a year, I think it is the annual UK budget, I mean, this is not going to touch the side. So I think culture and sport are really, really, really important.
At the point when we're taking money off pensioners for £1 billion...
Well, I mean, I come back to the... Without going down this...
That's the bottom line. That's the bottom line, isn't it? If you're taking money off pensioners, I wouldn't be giving it to pole vaulters.
Well, without going down this rabbit hole too far, I think it depends on which pensioners we're talking about, right? So that we know that there are lots of pensioners who can't afford to lose their winter fuel allowance. We also know that there are plenty who can.
Yeah.
See, my question about the winter fuel allowance is why set the threshold so low? I could see setting it at 20,000 a year, but why in the 11,000 mark? I think that's way too low.
Yeah.
Well, let's stay with the winter fuel allowance, shall we? Because a thief who stole £350 from a pensioner has avoided jail using it as an excuse, Candice.
This is quite a strange story. So it's reported by The Telegraph, and it said there was a really awful story of a young man about 23 years old who gained the trust of a pensioner and basically took a lot of money off him. One, he convinced him to give him money, you know, plied the sob story. And then two, he rifled through his wallet when the guy was out of the room and took money off him. When he was in court, however, his lawyer argued, well, this is no more than Keir Starmer would have taken off him in terms of the winter fuel allowance. I don't know if that actually makes sense in law, though.
No.
I mean, I know he said that.
It doesn't, and it wasn't taken into consideration. This story is actually a story about a newspaper that was once a great newspaper that has gone down the drain. This Telegraph headline is a complete disgrace. It's shoddy journalism. It's just not what happened. Like, it's literally not true. In the 20th line of the article, buried right at the bottom, it says, Pearson was given a 12-month community order with a 6-month drug requirement and 5 rehabilitation activity requirement days. He was given a sentence. He didn't go to prison because it didn't reach the threshold for a custodial sentence. The fact that this lawyer mentioned Keir Starmer, and I don't understand why he did, by the way, has nothing to do with it. This is just clickbait journalism rubbish.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, it's certainly no argument in law. Nevertheless, it will resonate with people.
Yeah.
It will resonate with people, whether we like it or not.
Yeah, and after the hearing, Mr Cooper said it was a fairly flippant remark, but it put what he did into context. It is not a nice crime, but I felt it was important for the bench to see it in the light of the Labour government's decision to take away the same amount.
I don't know. I think that's a bit of a slippery slope, that.
I'm not overly happy with lawyers getting political.
Agreed.
Exactly.
We're not the United States. Can we have a look at the Daily Mail, Andy?
Must we?
Well, yes, we must, because Nick Thomas-Symonds, in government, has said that they really are genuinely looking at the free movement of EU citizens into the UK, so long as they're under a certain age.
Yeah, so what they're looking at doing is reinstating a youth mobility scheme, effectively. So if you're under 30, you can come and work here, you can come and study here for a limited period of time. I think that is a simple case of reinstating a really valuable benefit and an opportunity for young people.
So more pressure.
Brexit took away from people.
More pressure on schools, more pressure on hospitals, more pressure on GPs, more pressure on councils.
Well, hang on, but
more pressure on housing.
When we left the European Union, many, probably a majority of people, many people, voted for Brexit because they thought that our net migration numbers would come down, and that's not what happened. The opposite happened.
No, but at least this government says they're going to tackle it.
Tackle
migration figures.
Yeah, exactly. So I think the government's going to look at that, bring down legal migration and bring down migration in general. But this is about bringing young, skilled people, intelligent people, students, people with degrees into the country for a limited period of time. I think that's a really good thing.
Limited period of time thing, that works really well historically.
Absolutely. Well, the Home Office needs to get a grip on that.
There will be people that are nervous this is reversing Brexit, Candice.
They will. I think when Labour's doing this, they're looking at younger voters, because I know amongst the young this is very popular, free movement. So maybe that's a sort of also an electoral strategy. You know, this is something that a lot of people would really like. What my question is will British people then be able to go abroad as well?
Yes.
It's difficult to manage something like this, though, you know, like people overstaying. I mean, one of the things that young people really need as well is we need more houses, we need more buildings to go on. So this is a lot of extra pressure on the housing market, which young people are struggling in already.
Yeah, I think it's a very odd thing to do.
It's not good enough to say we shouldn't do it because it's hard, right? We need to say we should do ambitious things, we should do things that are inherently good, in my view, and then we need to just manage the system better.
I'll tell you what, the idea, though, of what always really irritates me over stuff like this is not none of this applies to the majority of working, voting people in the UK. Who do not think, oh, I'm going to go and work in a different country. Like, it's not. It's your elite and middle classes who've got a bit of money in their pockets. No one from working class Britain says, oh, yeah, we're just going to go and work abroad for a few years. It doesn't happen. They're too busy trying to get a job down the shipyard or whatever.
No, I completely understand that, but we need to have, we should have a much more meritocratic society where people from all backgrounds can lift themselves up and have those opportunities. And I think that is if you're someone who's 16, 17, 18 at school, possibly going to university, possibly not, having the opportunity to go and work in another European country is a really enticing, exciting thought that could change people's lives in a positive way.
Andy, let's stick with you, shall we, and look at the Times. Shoplifting is now at the highest level since records began. Isn't it twice, 2 thefts every minute in shops across Britain now?
Yeah. I mean, it's absolutely rife. It's gone up by a third over the past year to another record high. It seems to, I don't know for how many years shoplifting has been on the rise, but it feels like it's been a very long time. I don't know whether I'm not making excuses, I don't know whether there's a cost of living aspect to it. One thing that I think is really significant is the rise of self-checkouts. I think it's just much easier for people to steal stuff these days in a practical way.
Well, except they're all monitored with cameras and things now.
I know, but I just don't think it stops people. And honestly, I don't think it's... I mean, I walked out of the supermarket yesterday and the things went off. I had obviously paid. But the things went... Just to be clear, the things went off and the security guard, who was on his phone, he just went, oh, yeah, it's fine. He clearly hadn't been paying attention, right? And if that's what's happening, that must be part of it. But I don't know what it is. I don't know whether it's, there's more motivation for people to be doing it. But I do think a lot of it is that people just think it's easy.
Well, the Co-op have been really outspoken about this, talking about it being criminal gangs. So it's sophisticated networks of people who are getting high-value items like alcohol, like baby formula, that they can then sell on the black market.
See, there's been that for a while. It hasn't been known exactly who is doing it. Is it ordinary people, like you're saying, facing cost of living pressures and making the wrong choice and stealing stuff? Or is it criminal gangs and then they're selling it on cheaper? I think the facts point more towards the latter. Right. But I think that there are real cost of living pressures. I think people really are struggling. That is real. Not to say that's the excuse for going out and shoplifting, but it also may be the reason why they sort of buy things on the black market.
Yeah, could be. All right, look, thanks both very much indeed. Been good to see you this morning.
Thank you very much. Alex Deacon, how's your weather?
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm front. Boxed heat pumps, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales, dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
A nice bright morning will generate a lovely warm day, right through to the evening. Boxed Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
The latest GB News travel.
Good morning, I'm Russell Holding. The A74M in Dumfries and Galloway is partly blocked northbound by an accident between junctions 15 and 14 from Moffat to Crawford, causing delays. In Northumberland, the A697 is closed each way where a lorry overturned between Thrunton and Edlingham. In Flintshire, the A55 North Wales Expressway is partly blocked eastbound by an accident between junctions 32 and 33 from Holywell to Northop, causing long delays. In Powys, the A470 remains closed each way between Glentoymin and Carno for an investigation. Train services are suspended between East Midlands Parkway and Leicester because of a signalling problem. In Oxfordshire on the A34, there's a lane closed southbound for repairs after an accident between Kidlington and the Pear Tree interchange at Oxford, with queues from the M40. And a couple of problems in London. The A12 is closed into town at Chadwell Heath after an accident with queues from Romford. On the M4, there's a lane closed eastbound just before junction 1, the Chiswick roundabout, with queues from the Heston services.
You can stay up to date throughout the day by visiting our website, gbnews.com.
This is the final week to grab your chance to win a whopping £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. That's like having £3,000 each month for an entire year in demand. Good luck.
This is Britain's Newsroom, where your voice matters.
It's just astonishing. With expert analysis and honest opinion, we don't just keep you informed.
We bring you unique perspectives you won't see anywhere else.
Can't argue with any of that. When the news happens, it happens here.
On Britain's Newsroom, weekdays from 9:30 a.m.
Only on GB News.
If you want your news to be straight talking... This is a nightmare for the Conservatives again. Down to earth. It's not just Nottingham where this is happening, is it? And most importantly, honest. Hard-working, middle-class taxpayers, they'll get their book thrown at them. Then catch me, Martin Daubney, Monday to Friday, 3 till 6 p.m. on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Join me, Nana Akwe, for an informative, interactive news programme with a difference. It's fun.
No, he didn't say that, Dave.
I'm so surprised.
I think there's an element of truth to that.
Join me from 3 p.m. every weekend, only on GB News, Britain's news channel.
Good morning to you. The Prime Minister paves the way for tax rises.
Sir Keir Starmer declares people with assets do not fit into his definition of working people, paving the way for possible tax hikes.
Well, that's as the Chancellor's warned a £50 billion borrowing spree risks raising interest rates.
Up in smoke, the government U-turn on their decision to ban smoking from pub gardens following heavy backlash.
The King delivers a landmark speech in Samoa as he urges world leaders to right inequalities that endure.
It seems to me that these connections between us are more precious than ever. Together we are wiser, stronger, and more able to respond to the demands of our time.
I'm live from the Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting in Samoa, bringing you the latest analysis from the King's speech and why he is looking towards the future rather than the past.
A real mishmash of weather today. Pretty dull for some, bright for others. Bit of heavy rain and some gusty winds. Find out who gets what. Join me later for the weather.
It's just gone 9 o'clock. I'm Stephen Dixon.
I'm Ellie Costello, and this is GB News Breakfast.
It's not a week to look forward to this coming week.
Well, we've been told not to look forward to it.
Well, this is it. When the Prime Minister says, don't look forward to the budget, it's going to be horrible, it doesn't give you a lot of confidence. The big issue with this budget, I think, is how we've got to deal with the consequences, but it's also how the markets react, because that was the problem with Kwasi Kwarteng's budget, Liz Truss's budget.
Mini budget, yeah.
Was that the markets basically pulled it apart and meant it all basically had to be cancelled.
Yeah, the markets were spooked, weren't they?
Totally spooked. There is speculation that they're spooked already by this. Things called 10-year gilt yields, which is all about how much people want to lend to government and what rates they would charge for that and all the rest of it. They're at a significant high. almost 5%, which is bad news if they're spooked before. I mean, maybe it'll calm down after the budget. But
it rose yesterday, didn't it? And reports in the Telegraph today that traders are still reeling from the fallout of the mini-budget, which was 2 years ago. And Jeremy Hunt has been warning Rachel Reeves, saying the markets are watching. Be careful.
I mean, you've got to hope for the best, haven't you? But amidst all of this, part of the concern that the investors, that the markets have, is that the Chancellor is going to rewrite the government's debt and taxation rules in the budget, which would unleash a borrowing spree. It would allow her to borrow £50 billion, but for capital investment.
Investors have warned that interest rates will remain high, with families expected to be hit with even higher mortgages.
Yeah, which is what happened after the mini-budget, of course. Now, there are also concerns the Prime Minister may break his promise not to raise taxes on working people, because he's now described working people that aren't just anyone who earns a living, but actually people who own, well, if you own an asset or shares, which may include pension contributions as well, then you're not a working person.
Well, speaking to Chopper's political podcast, former Conservative Chancellor Lord Lamont slammed the Prime Minister's use of the term.
I dislike this phrase, working people, not just because of its ambiguity, but I think it's deliberately designed to imply working class, which I think is an out-of-date idea, and it's appealing to old-fashioned labour mythology. And I think it's a very unpleasant term to talk about working people. Why is a pensioner not a working person? They've worked all their life. It's ridiculous.
Well, we spoke to a government minister this morning, the Exchequer Secretary to the Treasury, James Murray. Now, he said the government is not breaking election commitments.
Working people are people who go out to work, and that's how they earn their income. And what we said in our manifesto, and it's a commitment that we're keeping in government, is to protect working people through not increasing the rates of income tax, national insurance and VAT. Now, you said it's going to be a difficult budget. It is going to be a difficult budget with difficult decisions when it comes to taxation, welfare and spending. But I want to be really clear that the reason why we need to make those difficult decisions now is to get the public finances back on a firm footing so that we can get investment up and pursue that prize of growth, because growth is the way that we make people across the country better off.
Well, joining us now is GB News political correspondent Catherine Forster. Very good morning to you, Catherine. And so much of the speculation, so much of the nervousness around the budget on Wednesday has been centred around this definition of what a working person is. It was very vague during the run-up to the general election, wasn't it? But it seems to be getting narrower and narrower now.
Yes, indeed. It was very vague indeed, deliberately vague, I would suggest. And now it seems the parameters of what the government considers a working person are changing, because it looks like we're going to see rises in things like capital gains tax, inheritance tax, possibly fuel duty, possibly the tax thresholds for income tax, that freeze that the previous government introduced, being extended yet further, which will drag more people into higher rates of tax. Now, the Prime Minister saying people that go out and work for a living, but of course you can go out and work for a living and be well over 100,000 and have stocks and shares and all the rest of it too. The Prime Minister now stating, well, if you're getting most of your income from employment, that narrows the field down considerably. Plenty of people have small amounts of stocks and shares. Number 10 coming back and saying, oh, well, we don't mean people with just a little bit in terms of savings. So we're still not clear. For all the government are saying it's very, very clear. I don't think it is really, otherwise we wouldn't still be constantly talking about it. The only thing we do know is this long-awaited budget is next Wednesday, and we don't have very much longer to find out. But talking about what Lord Lamont said, also Lord Blunkett, David Blunkett, who was a cabinet minister under Tony Blair, telling the Times today that he's very worried by the rumoured rise in national insurance for employers' contributions to pensions being raised, saying that potentially will mean that employers pay less into people's pensions, that's going to potentially affect people's living standards going forward. We know that a lot of people don't save anything like enough for their pensions, so he's worried about that. That's coming from a Labour grandee, not the sort of intervention that the government wants at the moment.
Catherine, thanks very much indeed. I think it's fascinating that Keir Starmer said a working person is someone who doesn't have assets or shares. And now, as Catherine was saying, so, well, if you've got a few, that doesn't include you if you've got a little bit of it. But it's... So, again, it all becomes totally vague again.
It is very vague,
Andy's been in touch. Morning, Andy. It says, right, so anyone with assets is not a working person. So if you have a house with a mortgage, but you owe less than it's worth, it's an asset. If you work to earn money and save and invest, that's an asset. It seems it'd probably just reduce the number of working people in the country to about 100.
It's a very small pool, isn't it? Because if you take all of that into account, and then the comments about a working person, by Keir Starmer's definition, is someone who is waiting for a cheque but couldn't write a cheque. I mean, that is someone who is living...
Well, that's really hand-to-mouth.
Hand-to-mouth.
Which does apply to some people, but not in the great scheme of things, that many.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting that he sort of... What I find quite worrying about it is that it's when you say one thing and then 12 hours later you've got to correct it. And that seems to be happening a lot.
And there's so much of people just reading between the lines or trying to decipher exactly what it means. We will know by next Wednesday, but until then... This will continue, won't it?
And whatever the budget is, however good or bad it is, it will get through the Commons, of course, because they've got a massive majority. And then we'll just have to deal with it. And let's hope there isn't a big aftermath. Let's really hope and pray that the budget is good, because the country relies on it.
Well, and also the Labour government are relying on it. They will see it as their big reset moment, won't they?
Yeah, they will.
It's been a really difficult first few months for them. Hasn't exactly gone smoothly. So they will see this as their opportunity to set out their stall for how they're going to leave the next 5 years. They will be hoping it's going well.
Just don't expect any giveaways. I don't think we're going to get any of them this year.
Don't get your hopes up.
Right, let's have a look at the King, should we? He's told world leaders, or Commonwealth leaders at least, that the past cannot be changed, as he addressed the Commonwealth summit in Samoa, amid some calls, as you may have heard, about slavery reparations.
Well, joining us live from Samoa now is our royal correspondent, Cameron Walker. And good evening to you there in Samoa, Cameron.
Yes, good evening, Ellie. Good morning to you as well. Well, the King had a very busy yet serious day earlier on, but this evening he has been hosting the Commonwealth Heads of Government's dinner alongside Her Majesty the Queen at the Robert Louis Stevenson Museum here in Samoa, wearing some very snazzy outfits. It's not black tie because it is incredibly hot and incredibly humid here in Samoa. It's been roughly 28 degrees Celsius all day today and blistering sunshine. The King wearing what he wore yesterday, actually, a Royal Navy bush jacket style suit designed by himself, made by a Savile Row tailor. The blue trimming that you can see on his outfit, that was actually designed by the Samoan School of Arts. The Queen, she is wearing a blue embroidered tunic top and blue palazzo trousers by Anna Valentine, a favoured designer of Her Majesty the Queen. So this is the fun, soft, diplomatic talks between world leaders. But this afternoon, the King was very much down to business. It was a big day for him, the first time ever he has addressed the Commonwealth Heads of Government conference as the head of the Commonwealth. And it was a deeply poignant speech, really, because he paid tribute to his late mother, Queen Elizabeth II, and his late grandfather, King George VI, who were both really pioneers in strengthening the Commonwealth to what it is today, starting off with just a handful of nations in the early 1950s to the 56 family of nations that it is today. Here's what the King said about his late mother.
The Commonwealth mattered a great deal to my dear mother, the late Queen. Her commitment to you all, as that of my grandfather, King George VI, before her, is one which has helped to shape my own life for as long as I can remember.
Well, the elephant in the room was, as you've been discussing, calls for reparations from certain countries wanting to put it on the agenda for this Commonwealth Heads of Government meeting. The British ministers, including Prime Minister Sir Keir Starmer and the Chancellor Rachel Reeves, have both this week ruled out the British government paying countries who experienced slavery or colonisation in the past reparations for that. King Charles didn't directly reference reparations even, or slavery in his speech. But what he did do is acknowledge the past. So this is what he said.
Our cohesion requires that we acknowledge where we have come from. I understand from listening to people across the Commonwealth how the most painful aspects of our past continue to resonate. It is vital, therefore, that we understand our history to guide us to make the right choices in the future.
Of course, King Charles is a constitutional monarch, so takes his advice from government ministers and also is politically neutral. But it could create a further problem down the line because Baroness Scotland, the Secretary-General of the Commonwealth, she is stepping down this year. The three people who could succeed her have all called for reparations, so we'll have to see how that bubbles on over the next few years. But the King's other main point was unity within the Commonwealth, shared unity in the face of global threats, including climate change, the war in Ukraine and the ongoing conflict in the Middle East. He says we are stronger together as a 56 family of nations than we are apart.
OK, Cameron, great. So just before we let you go, Cameron, and just very briefly, I know you've been working very hard. I just want to, what is it like to be out there in somewhere like Samoa, which is in the middle of the Pacific, middle of nowhere, frankly, but looks beautiful?
Yeah, you know, I had a meeting earlier today, Stephen, at this most beautiful location, and it's, if you Google tropical paradise, that's what I was looking at. So that was a great office for sure. But it is a bit surreal, but it's very hard work. As much as it looks like a holiday, it really isn't. We are following the King and Queen around pretty constantly, or writing up or telling you guys what they've been up to. So yeah, it's good fun though.
Oh, Cameron, you're doing a stellar job. Honestly, you haven't stopped for the past week, whether that was in Australia or Samoa. You have been amazing, so thank you so much for all your coverage.
Oh, we didn't send him out there for a nice time.
Thank you.
No, good stuff, Cameron.
Listen, I hope he's been having some downtime. I feel like he's just constantly been talking to us.
It's a hard job.
Yeah,
looks fun.
Incredible as well. What an amazing experience.
If you want to go there, maybe you need to get your hands on some money. Today is the final day to see if you could be our next big winner.
Well, Angela from Wigan, you may remember, won £30,000 in our last Great British Giveaway. This is what she had to say about winning with us.
Hi, I'm Angela from Wigan and I won £30,000 with the Great British Giveaway. I could not believe it. I thought it was a joke. Winning the money enabled me to treat my children, which I've not been able to do for a while. And yeah, it's given us peace of mind now at night. I'd say to people who want to enter or are wondering whether to enter, to do it. It's one text, and if I can win, anyone can win, because I don't win anything. This is the first ever prize I've ever won, and it happens to people like me.
Well, there you go.
Oh, 30 grand for Angela in Wigan.
Yeah.
30 grand, I'm not bitter.
No. Well, don't tell Angela, but if you apply this time round, you could win £6 grand more.
Tax-free.
£36,000.
The stuff of dreams. Lines close at 5 o'clock today. Here are the details.
It's the final day to see how you could win an incredible £36,000 cash in the Great British Giveaway. For another chance to win, text cash to 63232. One entry costs £2 plus one standard network rate message. Or text bonus to 63232. 5 entries cost £5 plus one standard network rate message. You can enter online at gbnews.com/win. Entries start from just £2. Or post your name and number to GB08 PO Box 8690, Derby DE1 9TT. UK only. Entrance must be 18 or over. Lines close 5 p.m. today. Please check the closing time if listening or watching on demand. Good luck.
Yes, best of luck. Now, do stay with us. Still to come, homelessness charities are facing funding cuts worth £1 billion.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight
and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
This is GB News, Britain's news channel.
The number of pubs may reach critically low levels.
Absolutely. So what we're seeing is a decline in the number of pubs in Britain, and it's fallen. This is an absolutely astonishing figure. So it's basically fallen 10% in a decade. So do our maths. It doesn't take very long for that to happen. So if that carries on, we'd have, get this, only 1,000 pubs by 2074. So the big question is what will become extinct first? The bank branch on your high street, or the pub on your street corner? And this is a kind of perfect storm for landlords and landladies of, the cost of labour. We remember when the energy prices were at the high, we just realised just how much energy it keeps to keep the lights on in the local boozer. Yeah. As well as, as the cost of the golden nectar itself. So, as they call it in Australia.
Well, talking about that, I was mentioning the other day to, it was my father-in-law, I said, when I first started going to the pub, I was 15,
Okay.
Half a lemonade, half a shandy.
I was nearly 16, I got half a shandy. No, we used to have Monday Club, where a pint of Foster's was £1.50. And my father-in-law was saying, I went to London the other day, a pint was £8.
Yeah.
Can you believe it?
Yeah.
And when you've got those kind of prices, why wouldn't you just go down the supermarket and get 16 tinnies for £5?
So you're going all Aussie now. Put the tinnies in the esky before you have the bar.
Good day, mate. Why not?
Alex,
I agree, actually. I think it's concerning. A lot of people look at the high streets and they're very concerned that it's looking quite glum, to be honest. Lots of things are closing. But the reality is it's because people are not buying from the high street. They're not going to the pub, People are just deciding, what they're going to do in their spare time. Are they really going to go to the pub? Or are they going to potentially go to, David Lloyd or a Nuffield, join a gym membership? They're just looking at their expenses and just deciding, we're going to actually cut costs,
GB News, the People's Channel.
Welcome to State of the Nation, daily plunge into the stories shaping our country. I'm Jacob Rees-Mogg, and Monday to Thursday we bring you the insights, the facts, the truth about how our country is being governed. Because what happens in Downing Street matters down your street. Tune in to State of the Nation every Monday to Thursday, 8 to 9 o'clock. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Budget Day on GB News on Wednesday. Stay with us all day for the most anxiously anticipated budget in a generation.
Morning through to evening, we'll be here with insight
and analysis, crunching the numbers
as we work out the cost to the country and, most importantly, to you.
Because the Chancellor has a bill to pay. The question is...
who's going to pay it? Budget Day all day Wednesday on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
9:20 now. Homelessness charities are warning the government that the sector is on a cliff edge ahead of the budget.
Well, charities fear that £1 billion worth of funding could disappear from the sector altogether. Our East Midlands reporter, Will Hollis, has this.
First light, an early start for Framework Street Outreach team.
Could be worse, could be raining.
In Mansfield, homelessness has tripled. So has Steph's workload.
Rough sleeping numbers have increased dramatically. There's just not enough suitable accommodation for people at the moment.
Rough sleepers have little. Their complex needs make supporting them tough. Nationally, homelessness has risen by 60% since 2021. Short housing stock means homeless people are stuck on the street.
There's a lack of social housing as well. So even if you do manage to get on the social housing register, you're going to be waiting a really long time for that. So people keep being released from prison to no fixed abode, and then obviously we're picking them up because they're rough sleeping.
On top, charities like Framework face a funding crisis.
Services are under immense pressure, not just here in Mansfield, but across the country. Demand is greater, yet funding cannot cover the things that it used to.
I will be finalising my first budget as Chancellor of the Exchequer.
More than 70 of the biggest homelessness charities signed an open letter to the Chancellor, pleading for secure funding in the autumn budget. It's feared £1 billion will drop from the sector at the end of the year, and some services will close.
All the agencies, all the services are stretched and full to capacity.
Claire McGonigal is Deputy Chief Executive at Framework.
We've seen an explosion of homelessness and massive increases in terms of the need of people. The housing crisis at the moment is unprecedented. There are no affordable units for people to live in. The system is completely blocked up. The wraparound services that people need to recover are just at breaking point themselves.
A Ministry of Housing spokesperson said it's developing a long-term strategy to get the country back on track to end homelessness while addressing the root cause, which includes abolishing no-fault evictions and improving social housing. Back in Mansfield, morning has arrived, but Steph's job is far from finished.
Some of these rough sleepers, we're the only person they see that day. If you take that away, what's going to happen?
Will Hollis, GB News, Mansfield.
Now, at GB News, we love to hear what you think, so every day we'll be running our poll of the day. And today we're asking, has Labour declared a class war on Middle Britain?
Now, we're bringing the results throughout the day as they come in, but here's a teaser of what we've got so far. On screen for you now, currently 98% of you say yes. 2% say no. Final result for you in Martin Daubney's show this afternoon. You can go to gbnews.com/poll to get involved.
Now, you might be able to hear some giggles in the corner. That's Nana Requeer and Matthew Goodwin, who are here to tell us all about what's coming up at 9:30. Morning, you two, and welcome, Matthew.
Good morning. Good morning. Now, I'm excited about this poll because I think that the couple of people who've gone and the 2% will probably change their minds, and it'll be 100% by the time we get to Martin.
Absolutely.
But anyway, so today's show, we're obviously going to talk about this whole working person definition. I mean, it's absolutely absurd. The window of what a working person is getting smaller, isn't it?
It's people who go to work, apparently. That's what I heard this morning from a Labour minister. Working people's people who go to work.
But it's not what Keir Starmer's saying, though, is it? It's about whether you can write a cheque or not.
If you've got shares or assets.
We're also going to be talking about the reparations issue.
Reparations.
The King at the Commonwealth Summit. So that'll be interesting. Is it reparations through the back door? Are they going to use things like climate change and so on to sneak in reparations?
Oh, that's an interesting one. Right, you two, we'll see you in 5 minutes. But that is it from us.
Yep, you're back tomorrow, aren't you?
Yeah. Here's the weather.
Expect a warm front, moving from the kitchen right through to the rest of the house. Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Morning. Time for your latest weather update from the Met Office here on GB News. Today, a real mishmash of weather. A lot of cloud across eastern areas, quite blustery in the southwest, but some spots having a bit of sunshine. We also have some more persistent rain across Wales and down across the West Country towards the Isle of Wight, and rain at times creeping up towards Northern Ireland. The odd shower in southern Scotland, but much of southwest Scotland, far northwest of England, dry and fine with sunny spells. Staying pretty cloudy, but mostly dry over eastern Scotland and eastern England. Gusty winds in the southwest with showers at times across Cornwall, Devon and Somerset. Temperatures getting into the mid to high teens, feeling quite pleasant in the sunshine, but feeling cooler in the southwest with that gusty wind, which continues to throw some showers in here as we go into the evening time. Turning drier across Wales and the West Midlands, this line of rain creeping northwards towards Manchester for this evening's rush hour, and some rain returning to southern parts of Northern Ireland this evening too. Most of Scotland having a fine end to Friday. We'll keep a lot of cloud through the day on the east coast, and that's likely to stick around as we go through the night. Clearer spells further west and some clearer skies across parts of England and Wales too. And then as we go through the night, the winds continue to bring the risk of some showers in the far southwest. A bit of patchy rain dribbling northwards across Scotland, and some rain threatening the far southeast. But elsewhere, many places dry and clear, turning a bit chilly. Temperatures well down into single figures in the countryside. A little bit of mist and fog is possible too. On to Saturday, and it's kind of, well, the four corners having different types of weather. A lot of cloud for the far southeast, patchy rain here, still quite breezy in the far southwest with the odd shower, turning wet across the northwest and staying quite cloudy in the northeast. But many of these central areas having a good-looking day tomorrow. Much of northern England, the Midlands and Wales dry and bright on Saturday with decent spells of sunshine and light winds, feeling pleasant in that sunshine with temperatures in the mid-teens.
There will be a light breeze in the morning, leading to a warm